What is something acceptable in women, but frowned upon in men? 100% correct, and if you bitch about the people you have to run into being shallow or manipulative, then you are called an incel, whereas women can bitch all day long about men using them for sex or being manipulative. Yet, if you think about throwing the word narcissistic concerning a woman, then you better be willing to get laughed at, sonny boy. I was super upset this year because of a woman that I had fallen for, and she said she left me, stopped talking to me. But I was like, you know what, whatever, it happens. But then, after I moved on, this chick messages me out of nowhere at like 4 a.m. and says, hey! I'm like, oh, you must have missed me. And she's all like, not really, no. And, can we talk? I'm all like, sure? What is this about? She then proceeds to request of me the most batshit insane bullshit I've ever heard in my entire life until that point. She's all like, so I'm happy with my current partner, and I need you to tell me about all the times we had sex so I can come clean to my partner about it. I was incredibly confused, to say the least. I was like, what partner? She then goes on and tells me that she had a boyfriend this whole time and lied to me about almost everything she said. I was incredibly upset and was like, what the Dude, like, I legitimately loved you. Did you ever love me? Her response, no. I never loved you. I told her to right off, and I'm not helping her with her shit. Then the boyfriend messaged me and asks why I was so upset, and I revealed what happened, and he was all like, wow, that sucks, but we are working it out. I laughed my ass off and was like, have fun with the crazy dude. I get yet another text at 7 p.m. from the same chick again, asking why I told her boyfriend that she and I had f***ed when we didn't. We did. We just did. She just denied it to make herself look better, and I imagine faked anger to undercut what I was saying. My overall point was that this chick had absolutely no soul. I made a post about what happened on Facebook, and some chick tagged me in a group chat and said, this didn't happen so hard that it unhappened. What? I posted screenshots of the texts, and the chick was all like, oh, cool dude, you faked screenshots. Weird that you want to lie about women just because you're not getting any. TLDR, manipulative women don't exist in the eyes of other women, but manipulative men do. That's a bunch of bullshit, sonny. Posing, in some ways. A month ago, I took some selfies with my phone a few meters away from the camera, trying out some different poses. I chose to post to my Instagram 2 pics in which my poses were me with a profile view, my frontal knees slightly bent backwards, twisting my head to look over the camera, my shoulder, blah 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 blah. And I was wearing tight sweatpants and t-shirt so my glutes looked, well, defined. Needless to say, my brother told me that some people had asked him if I was gay because of the poses I did in those pics, and because in the caption I typed that I had been feeling prettier with myself because of my self-esteem had been, and still been, getting slightly better. Even if the poses looked feminine, that doesn't mean that I'm gay. My mother doesn't even bother to hide her annoyance at those comics by blaming me for getting myself labeled by others as things I'm actually not. I told her and my brother that I simply just don't care. Even though I've told them about having difficulties accepting the way I feel about my body, they don't understand it, and it has not been easy because I have rarely spoken about it. All I'm saying is, let me pose however the f*** I want to. I don't consider myself feminine because I don't act feminine. I don't see myself that way, and there are some feminine mannerisms and gestures that I unironically don't actually feel comfortable making. This doesn't make me a femboy, non-binary, trans, or necessarily a sassy person. I wish they could understand that I posed the way in those photos because the reason I took them is because I just felt good about myself. If others think less of me just because of those pictures, then they can shove those opinions up where the sun don't shine. If they feel uncomfortable, fine, you can. But your assumptions about me may not match with the real me unless I am or have confirmed otherwise. It seriously pisses me off that posing in some ways makes you gay. Of course, there are some extents I wouldn't pose like. Same as with many other actions or activities that are more predominantly done by women, with definitions that have nothing inherently connected with sexual/romantic attraction. Letting your job or career crumble / general laziness / incompetence. It has everything to do with societal expectations, and women are still infantilized. I think it's the most insidious kind of sexism because it's so easy for them to take the easy path of low expectations without even realizing it. I can't tell you how many times I've seen women just mess up really badly in my grad programs and jobs, and people just kind of turn a blind eye. I mess up, and it's a really big problem. Whoop-de-doo. But I've seen lots of other women either get not called out or cry when they are called out. I can't imagine crying whenever I mess up. I think my boss would think I'm mentally ill. At first, this irked me, and I didn't exactly know what to think about it, because it feels like a sexist thought, but I can't notice these things. One day, a mentor took me aside and said, "Look, I'm hard on you because if you fail, you're screwed. If she fails, she's gonna have a safe place to land, she doesn't have to support herself if she doesn't want to, her family will do it, or she'll find someone else who will happily do it for her." This was, of course, a very incredibly sexist thing to say/do, because he was neglecting to correct and train my woman counterpart under the assumption that she would not need to succeed. And then she very casually ghosted the lab after she got married and never finished the degree. There is a really nuanced way we should look at that. The expectation that men have to succeed is in a way justified, because I cannot expect someone to support me if I do not decide to work, not typically at least. If I go down, I'm homeless. If she goes down, she's a trophy wife/partner. Family is more willing to support their daughters monetarily. The other end of this is that imagining what would happen to me if no one demanded that I succeeded, no one demand excellence. What sounds like a good deal for some lazier woman is a terrible curse for the determined ones. I guess that's as far as I'll go with this one, because I'm deeply afraid of the Reddit gods and their godly wrath. As a dad, a lot of the responses in this post are big reasons some of us are seen as assholes in their society, either accidental or deliberate. We are forbidden, at least in the US, from speaking to, looking at, or even acknowledging a minor's presence. Even if it's our child, we must consistently be alert for the troublemaker that has nothing better to do. Hell, I've been damn lucky myself. Maybe it's just different living in the rural area. But I've had my fair share of close calls, including one where I get side-eyed by a mom for commenting on a kid's coat of all things, because my kid used to wear one just like it 2 or 3 years prior. I saw the same mother maybe about 20 minutes later, while with my kid, and apologized, acknowledging that it may have came off as a bit creepy, and I still got the stink eye. Perhaps a month later, I saw a dad with his 2 kids at the gas station, and the daughter was wearing a skirt tucked into her underpants. I wanted to say something, but here's a random dude who just noticed a minor, so I never said anything. I just hope he noticed the wardrobe malfunction sooner rather than later. Dad would have been most likely very protective of his kids. Not that I blame him. I've since figured out that unless the parents know you, even casually, it's much safer for a male just to ignore everything. Kid gets hurt? Tough shit, Tommy or Susie. The guy ain't getting the cops called on him. Kids lost? Keep 10 feet away at all times until the cops get here, bud. Even if I had a medical knowledge to help, I'm not going anywhere near that landmine. But don't get me wrong, I'm well aware that there is a large problem with child trafficking, etc., and I'm very grateful that the people are alert to potential threats. But how the hell much evidence do we, as dads or family members, need to provide to show that we're not some type of sicko? By the way, most of the kids who are abused probably know the perp, so the stranger danger idea, while valid, doesn't hold much water. Sorry for the rant. Just last year, I was arrested. Let me explain. My girlfriend got mad at me because I wanted to leave the house to go out with friends for a few hours. Argument happens. She then proceeds to hit me and lock/boarding me in her room. It could only be locked inside with the key to unlock it. Took the key, continued to hit me. I kept pleading to let me go. Nope, I started recording the whole thing. Got multiple videos of her hitting me and choking me. What did I do? I kept asking her to let me go. After a few hours, things kept progressing, and she ended up stabbing me in the chest area right near my heart. At this point, I push her down, cause what else am I supposed to do? Blood squirts everywhere. My roommates hear the yell and cry for help, and called an ambulance, and I was assisted and taken to the hospital. I was released and greeted on my way out by detectives. Taken to jail. Why was I arrested? Domestic violence because she had scratch marks on her shoulder and I pushed her off of me in an attempt to save my life. Was she arrested for unlawfully restraining me, choking me, hitting me, stabbing me? No. Nothing. Just calls from domestic violence follow-up to ensure she was safe. The videos of the night did no help and only got her pity from the detective. What was found on her phone? Videos of her smoking meth that day and texting her friend about what happened, including the fact that she stabbed me. What a joke this country is. We both declined to press charges, but of course, I got hit with them. When I was much younger, of course, I was taught never to hit a girl. In HS, there was one girl who had anger issues. She would hit people for seemingly no reason, and I did my best to avoid her. One day, I guess I looked at her wrong, or was breathing too much air, or my pancreas was the wrong color because she hit me. I wasn't even talking to her, she just walked up and hit me. Punched to the jaw, right there in the hallway at school. Then she just stood there, and cocked her arm back as if to do it again. My brain raced. I can't hit a girl, but that hurt, and the second one will hurt more. I was taller and worked out back then. The hallway was too crowded to run without knocking someone over. So I gently, but firmly, grabbed her shoulders, one in each hand. Now she can't move. I looked at her right in the eyes and calmly asked her not to hit me. She said nothing. I asked again. She nodded. I said thank you, and released her and backed away a little. She never hit me again. Everyone in the hallway saw it, and neither of us got in trouble. I think I handled it the best I could with my teenage brain. If everyone in society is truly equal, then anyone should be able to defend themselves against anyone else with whatever level of force is required. This is not the case when the aggressor is female and the victim is male. People can be aggressive. Anyone can. Nothing will ever change this. It's super weird. I had an ex-girlfriend who wanted to go on the beach on a day a hurricane was predicted to make landfall. I told her I didn't feel comfortable in doing so, but she just kept pushing because, and I quote, "It'd be fun, and the meteorologists are always wrong." My anxiety was through the roof about this, and I was very tense. At the same time, it felt so surreal to even be having this conversation. Like, I was questioning my judgment and risk assessment, and I literally felt like I was trying to have an adult conversation with my teenage niece. I wasn't yelling, screaming, or acting out, or anything of the sort, but she told me that I was scared by being anxious and scared about going to the beach in a hurricane. At the same time, I could literally see on her face that she perceived me as weak, and I could see her feelings of respect towards me drop to nothing. That was the moment our relationship changed, and we broke up about a month later. The hurricane shifted course, and it didn't make landfall where it was supposed to, and she threw it in my face multiple times about how she missed out, and we could have been having fun, and the meteorologists were wrong. I've been through tornadoes, blizzards, hurricanes, a forest fire, and an earthquake. I don't f*** around with Mother Nature just to have some fun. Interact with children in a public setting without having police or management call on them. My wife thinks it's absolutely hilarious, and slightly horrifying at the same time, that small children gravitate towards me anytime we are out in public. I'm a 36-year-old dad of 3 beautiful daughters, and I am able to use my wife's words. I think those babies just know that your arms are the safest place to be anywhere in this restaurant, because I would never do anything to hurt a child in any way, and there have been at least half a dozen times where a kid sat at a table next to us and will climb over their parent to try and get to me. It usually ends with some laughter and chatting with the parents, and maybe even letting the kiddo come hang with me and my wife for a while, and sometimes the parents are even happy for the break. But very rarely is there an awkward situation with the other parents, but I have had restaurant patrons, Karens, have management go to the other parent and make sure I was not bothering them because they saw me interacting and playing with this kid from across the aisle. Why? I guarantee you that if my wife was the one making the funny faces or funny gestures to the child and making them laugh, they would have not said a word, because I am a man. I am public enemy number 1. Being treated the same by the legal system. There are thousands of cases in which women don't get punished as severely as men for the same crime. I'll share 2 incidents. There was a guy in Washington, a high school kid, who was accused of sexual harassment by two girls from the same friend group. The school kicked him out, legal action was taken, and the media destroyed his image, character, etc. But after a while, those girls confessed that she falsely accused him because they thought he was weird. The school took no action, as if they never did anything. They didn't take the kid back to school. Media was silent. The only action was a lawsuit filed by the parents, which resulted in nothing. Those girls destroyed that kid's life, cause his mental state would never be the same to ever date normally or be normal or confident around girls, and those girls just went on living their normal life, as if nothing happened. Incident number 2. A school teacher has been punished with only a 21-day probation for molesting a 13-year-old kid for 3 years. She always forced him, and was caught when the kid wasn't able to take it anymore and called 911, crying and being barely able to breathe. Imagine if a guy would have done even half of it. That in a relationship, women can get away with a lot. I recently broke up with my GF of 3 years because I couldn't take it. Nobody would care or believe me if I told them, so I was too scared to do so. I gave everything and my all to her, and she expected even more, and I'm very young. I was afraid to leave because she would accuse me of raping her or assaulting her when she has assaulted me. Not sexually, thank God. But the amount of things they can get away with is ridiculous. She slapped me, and that was the first breaking point. She got suspended from school for 3 days, but she only stayed at a friend's house and enjoyed herself and spam-mailed me, and her friends got onto me. Imagine if I did that. I would be in juvie, no doubt. Not saying I would hit her, of course, but still, the ramifications would be immense. I'm still scarred right now, and I'm honestly depressed and dreading going back to school. And yet, there she is, fine, and she's already found someone that likes her, and she's always screamed, "No one will date me!" Basically, what I'm saying is, women can get away with a lot of stuff that men couldn't even comprehend doing. Also adding sexual assault/rape to that list. Don't want to go into details that much, but I was drugged a few years back by a girl and this happened. It took 4 phone calls to 911 to get a police officer to see me, 7 different emergency rooms to get one to even check my vitals, and I was consequently fired from my job for not showing up to an AM meeting with a client whilst dealing with this. After several years and proof of the attack, which was never even investigated, even with her on security camera and her license plate, etc., I at least got an apology from the CEO that regretted firing me years later when he realized that I have been truthful. Edit. For publicity's sake, please consider donating to RCC, the Rape Crisis Center. After being turned away from standard hospitals, I was referred to them. Around 45% of victims they meet are male, and most of these cases go unreported/untreated. Male rape and assault, often by female attackers, are surprisingly common, but get swept under the rug because it tends to use drugs instead of brutal force on average. Hitting the opposite sex, just holding their arm so they can't hit me, was criminal in their eyes. At around age 19, my sister hit me in the face during an argument, and I grabbed hold of her arms to stop her, and my mum screamed at me. Truly screamed. She said she hopes I never treat my wife like that, and I should never treat a woman like that. I did nothing but stop myself from being hit. I didn't hit her or hurt her, she was literally punching me in the face. I am much larger and stronger than her, and I just tried to stop her. The same thing happened between me and my mum. She tried to hit me and I caught her hands. She went mental and said to let go. So I did, and she tried to hit me again. I stopped her from hitting my face, and then later had to say sorry for the bruise on her hip because I tried to stop her from hitting me, and I accidentally nudged her against the table. Absolute insanity. I would never even imagine hitting my sister or mum, and they would never even imagine hitting my dad, who she kicked out for very valid reasons. I recall a news report from back when I was in high school, somewhere around 2000 I would guess, where the news agency decided to test how much people pay attention to missing kid signs. They hired a child actress to sit on a mall bench looking sad, plastered missing kid flyers with her face on them all throughout the mall, and camped out with their hidden cameras and her parents at a restaurant patio in view of the bench. Over the course of the day, only a handful of people stopped to check on this lone girl. As I recall it, it was mostly because she was looking alone and sad rather than anyone actually noticing the flyers. A few, like maybe 3 or so, of the people who stopped to ask if she was okay were men. The girl's actress's mom in the interview afterwards said, "I'm really disappointed that almost nobody cared to check on the kid who obviously needed help, and it was quite disturbing how many men tried to talk to her. Lady, what the fuck?" I went to my nephew's birthday party over the summer at the park. My 2-year-old and I went to one of the swing set slide things where the other kid was just playing. Probably like 8 years old, I believe. Her parents must have been nearby because I didn't know who they were. Anyway, she suddenly comes up to me and says hi, I say hi, she asks my name, I tell her, and then without warning, she starts hugging me. I was so terrified. What do you do in this situation? I can't just push her away, I can't hug this little girl I've never seen before back, so I just nervously smiled and kinda backed away slightly after she hugged my legs. She eventually just left and started playing again. Later on, I mentioned it to my sister-in-law, and she just laughs. Apparently, that girl is autistic and just loves men for some reason and hugs them all the time. I felt so relieved, but god damn, I was so scared I was gonna get my ass beat. I was taking my dog out to the park, and as we walked by the playground, a couple of kids ran up to see my dog, who absolutely adores children. He was a minor celebrity to the kids at the park. So I kneeled down so I could hold his harness and be at the eye level with the kids, and they patted him, and then after a couple of kid anecdotes and telling me about their dogs, blah blah blah, I stood up and walked off, and had a woman follow me all the way to the dog section and threatened to call the cops if I ever did that again. So, naturally, I did as I left, and sure enough, she went and got the officer who stopped by the park on his patrol. After asking me a handful of questions, he told her to f*** off. It is insane how brainwashed our culture is against men interacting with children in public open spaces in a completely safe way, like my dog wanted to talk to the kids, not even me. Going to the park with a child. I babysat my niece, my cousin's daughter to be precise, once. I was 20, she was 4. I took her to the park to play, and on 2 separate occasions, a woman came up to my niece and asked if she knew me, and if her parents permitted me to take her to the park. One even called the police. I had to video call my cousin while she was working so that my niece could identify her as her mom, and my cousin could identify me as her cousin and current babysitter. The crazy thing is, the policewoman was still doubtful. What the fuck? What else did she want? Did she want a DNA test? To see if we were truly related? Obviously, my sister babysat her multiple times and nobody ever questioned her. When I was younger, I went to this rotten school. The students there were just horrible creatures. At some point, they had to separate the older kids from the younger ones. There was this group of 16 to 17-year-olds who bother smaller kids. This 17-year-old girl used to hit this 12-year-old boy. She was extremely violent, throwing rocks at him and kicking him and more. Yet his pitiful classmates used to laugh at him for being hit by her, saying he's weak. SMH. I mean, the girl looked weak herself, but her body is strong for a 17-year-old. Not to mention, the girls weren't laughed at when an older kid hit them, but they get laughed at or called names when someone does something bad other than hitting. While visiting my mom for Thanksgiving, I saw a woman walking a dog that looked just like my brother's dog who had passed away earlier that year. When my brother arrived, I asked if he had seen the doggy ganger. He said he had, and he almost had stopped and asked if he could pet the pup, but wasn't sure if the woman was a teenager or a young adult, so opted not to interact. I, female, wouldn't have thought twice about the woman's age. Most of the time, a woman's interactions with children and other women are given the benefit of the doubt, whereas due to the actions of some creeps, harmless actions from males are more likely to come across as creepy, even if they aren't ill intentions. As a single dad who has custody of his son, 5 years of age, I've been told a child needs a mother's love. If I show any affection to my son, I always get weird looks. People always assume that I'm giving the mom a break, when in reality she left because she felt she didn't get to date enough before getting married and having a family. But yeah, a lot of frowned upon stuff seems to involve me simply being a decent father, LeMayo. Edit. Thank you all so much for the kind words. I only wish that we all keep moving forward and loving each other. I want my kid to grow up loving the world and seeing the best in people. The sun rises and another day comes. Keep putting one foot in front of the other.
What gender double standard do you hate the most? God forbid a woman knowing anything that's not viewed as traditionally feminine, especially anything related to mechanical work and tooling. I got sick of Allen wrenches getting lost at work, so I stopped by the store to just buy my own set. The guy at the register goes, "Wow, your husband sent you in here instead of coming in? These are for me." This guy looked genuinely shocked over Allen wrenches of all things. I mean, I get that my experience is anecdotal, but I hear it a lot from other women. Going to the garage is a nightmare, and I've just had to preempt people trying to talk to me like I'm a moron. I just don't get it. It'd be one thing if it was a few older guys, but just in general, men don't seem to take women at face value if they have knowledge pertaining to trade work. Meanwhile, grown men don't know how to change their tires and break into a cold sweat when someone asks them about something car-related. Yeah, right. Also, women are supposed to be good at traditionally feminine things like sewing, knitting, and other types of handicrafts, which require a similar level of technical skill and attention to detail anyway. But when it comes to something like soldering electronics on a circuit board or using tools, that's only supposed to be for men. Story 2. Not sure if this is a double standard exactly, but it seems like some men do not realize what a serious commitment it is for women to sleep with you. Even if she is on birth control, just having intimacy with you one time might change her entire life or end her life from pregnancy complications or during childbirth, or may result in her raising your offspring alone for the next 18 years with permanent physical changes and scars. Men saying things like, "Why don't high school girls just sleep with incels?" Or, "Why do women act like mistreatment is a serious crime?" Or, "Do women even enjoy intimacy?" Like they are totally clueless about the serious lifelong commitment of bearing a child and the permanent physical changes that are associated with it. Men act like that is nothing, like we should not be concerned about that potential outcome at all because they are not. But that is because they bear no physical risk at all whatsoever. And one man may come to this realization and understand that risk, but there is still an army of high school boys behind him who are attending anti-cancellation marches while obsessing because girls will not sleep with them. Story 3. When it's celebrated to judge men in general, like I've gone through life judging the person in front of me for who they are. When someone brings value to your life, you want to keep them around. And when they take it from you, you push them away. We are all people, whether man or woman. I can't scroll through social media anymore without at least coming across something telling me that I am bad because I am a man. It doesn't exactly get to me a lot, but it is still disappointing to know that there are people out there who are judging me before meeting me solely based on my gender, which is prejudice, and are encouraged to do it. That means that nothing I do, no matter how good, will change those people's minds that I am a bad person, even though we may have never met and I know for a fact that I am a good person. There are men out there that deserve scrutiny. I totally understand that. There are also women out there that deserve the same scrutiny. There are just bad people in this world, and that's what it comes down to. It's dangerous and completely against logic to look at bad people and then so broadly categorize them. To have this notion that men are bad unless otherwise proven not to be is dangerous for both boys and girls growing up nowadays. With access to the internet at such a young, malleable age, kids are going to grow up with these illogical notions ingrained in who they are as a person. If that happens, girls will be discouraged from making meaningful connections with boys, and boys will grow up with the notion that they are bad for simply existing. We should really encourage the celebration of the individual. I think we are moving in that direction, but in recent years especially, the trend of turning down men for being men, and for some reason straight men, has really been prevalent. Story 4. Okay, I'm already bracing for the backlash to this, but here goes. First of all, I think women should 100% be allowed to serve in the military in any capacity they want. My issue is entirely with the way the military, specifically the U.S. Navy, deals with pregnant service members. I hate that women can be deployed for the duration of the pregnancy and for a year afterwards, but they are still listed as part of the crew. I'm not saying women shouldn't serve in the military. Every division on a ship has a set number of spots. When someone is transferred to a new duty station or separates from the Navy, a spot opens up and someone else is assigned. That way, a division is, hopefully, fully manned. The exception is when a female service member gets pregnant. They are temporarily assigned to a shore duty command, but they are still listed as part of the ship's crew. The end result is you have an incomplete division with no hope of getting replacements. I was in a combat division that had to man a 24-hour watch. There were 4 women in my division. 2 of them were among the hardest working and most dedicated people I have ever truly had the pleasure to work with. The third was not any better or worse than most other sailors, and the last was such a huge shitbag. About 2 months before deployment, they all got pregnant. I know that most of the time things just happen and you just have to deal with it, but I know for certain that Sally got pregnant deliberately to get out of deployment. So now we are deployed missing 4 watchstanders, which was a third of our overall division. We needed 3 people minimum on a watch team, so that meant that we went from 4 duty sections to 2. The end result was that we had to spend 9 months standing 12 hours of watch a day on top of all the maintenance and training that is required. And there was nothing we could do about it because while they were back at home with their family, they were still listed as part of the ship's crew. Story 5. I really hate how it's just sort of acceptable for women to harm men because she was slightly annoyed or in a bad mood or he made a joke she didn't like or because she thought harming a man is funny or any number of other stupid reasons. Hell, men being hurt in their jewels for an errant comment, breaking up with a woman or just because she felt like it and thought it'd be funny is a tired trope based on the idea that in every circumstance the man quote-unquote deserved it, to the point where if a woman hurts a man in public everyone just assumes he, again, quote-unquote, deserved it. If a man gets harmed by a woman, is he just supposed to take the pain and somehow fend her off without hurting back? When he gets slapped, it still hurts. Hell, getting harmed in the jewels is supposedly one of the worst experiences there is, and it's okay for someone to harm me there? Potentially sending me to the hospital, but definitely leaving me in pain for the remainder of that week because I broke up with her, said the wrong thing, was minding my own business around her, and she thought it'd be funny? Story 6. After reading some of the comments, I'd say pretty much the same thing about children. Play with a kid in public. As a man, you get looks. Woman, nobody even cares. I was with my sister who was babysitting a kid and I would tag along as the kid was fun as hell, tons of energy, loved to play games, best little dude I've known. Anyway, while out in public, we were both told to stay outside the shop and wait. She was only going to be a few minutes. We stayed outside on the bench, then he got up and I chased him around the bench and then I stopped mid-chase and looked around to see that literally every single person walking by was looking at us. I sat down on the bench and got him to sit down too before somebody thinks I'm trying to steal him. For context, neither me or my sister were teens either. She had her own place at this point because I know people will think babysitter means teenage. Story 7. The idea that the husband makes all the big decisions and is in charge. I own a store and my husband works there, but I'm in charge. I pay the bills, do the hiring and firing, make the rules, all the decisions. But when customers don't like a price or something, they go ask for my husband. When I tell them that I'm the owner and he doesn't have the authority to override my decisions, they say that because we're married, it's his store too, so he's in charge too. He'll even tell them that they have to go through the owner on stuff and that he doesn't own the store, just works a few days a week there just to help out, but people tell him he's wrong. We have a great relationship, but people act like it's wrong that on most things I'm in the driver's seat. Like it's emasculating that I'm the more ambitious and driven one and that he's more supportive of my goals and handles more stuff at home. If our roles were reversed, no one would think it was weird for a husband to run a company and his wife to help out on the sidelines, keep the house, and just support his goals. Story 8. Being told constantly when you're young that, quote, you don't need to learn how to blank or you don't really need or want a promotion. Because you're young and when you're married, your husband will do it. Focus on finding a husband. Constantly being underestimated. Always being doubted in your ability to do things or think because you're not a man. Being told wives shouldn't have opinions or be consulted in any way. Constantly being treated and told you need to be an object or that your looks are more important than an education or that your appearance dictates your abilities. I was burnt by accident and my family tore into me about how I damaged my skin now so no one will ever want to marry me. That moms are the only parent and it's either amazing or unfair when a man cares for his kids. That you're supposed to want to cheat on your wife and her only purpose is caring for the kids, house, and intimacy when your girlfriend is out. My husband and I were invited to a party, but he said we couldn't make it because we couldn't get a babysitter with last-minute notice. It was suggested to him he go because there will be girls and isn't his wife supposed to be the childcare? Story 9. All jobs are made to fit the standard that men are the ones working those jobs, so most jobs have way too many hours, which makes being a parent really hard. Usually, one of the parents has to go part-time, and most of the time, one of the parents, commonly the father, doesn't get the time they should with their child and most importantly, their newborn baby. If both parents had the right to a parental leave when a baby is born, it would also really help with this situation where women are discriminated against by employers since they might have to take parental leave if they get pregnant and so on and so forth. It would also help fathers to be part of their child's loved one's life and not be forced to work because of a system designed to have them working long hours to support a family. Men aren't just physical beings, they also have a thing you call mental health. And these, well, propagandas for the sake of making a point are not helping lower the rates of men ending themselves. Because, as I have said, this system and these stereotypes were created solely for the purpose of using people as a means of getting richer as governments or as companies. Quote unquote, working for them isn't the same as being with them. Basically, the point is men should have time with their kids and loved ones. Story 10. Might share a little story that happened to me earlier this year in relation to double standards. I was trying to resolve a dispute between my female friends, SO, with some of their work colleagues against an intoxicated female manager. She was hurling verbal mistreatment towards the party and mistreating me and also attempting to be prejudiced towards me in order to upset me as I have an ethnic appearance. We'd asked her many times to leave us alone as she came up to us and initiated the whole thing. After trying to get her to leave, most of the girls in the group were distressed and upset, and after she was prejudiced towards me, I poured her own drink on her and she then bottled me in the face with her empty glass. With all of it being recorded and going to the police, there was no outcome. Now, if the shoe was on the other foot and I was prejudiced and mistreated a female and she poured a glass on me and I harmed her, I'm sure I'd probably be in prison. If that's not double standards, I don't know what is. Story 11. Okay, so this is a bit of a vent, but for me, it's how some women will assume the worst of men while giving the utmost trust to other women. I'm just trying to make friends and I'm careful not to come off as creepy. I have no ill intentions and I'm the kind of person you'd trust to take care of your family members if you ever got to know me. Yet for some reason, some women get the wrong idea about me. Typically, it takes the form of them assuming that I'm trying to seduce them for whatever reason, when I have no interest in these women beyond friendship. Even if I say nothing at all, these women think I'm into them. Sometimes I wonder if I should order a shirt that says, "I like guys," in big rainbow letters to finally make them understand I ain't that kind of guy. I'm not exaggerating either. One time, I was rejected for what was mistaken as a date when asking a woman if she'd like to join her friends and I at a drag show during Pride Month, literally the non-straightest event of the year in our area. Anyways, these same women tend to immediately put all their trust into other women. The woman could literally be a witch directly to their face and act horribly to them, but they just laugh it off like it's just some light-hearted joke. I've known some obviously genuinely manipulative and mistreating lesbians who these women should actually fear who were treated better than me. If you're one of these women, please get rid of your gender expectations. Not all men are nice to you just because they want to shag, and not all women are your allies and friends. If you're in a first world country, you're part of a society where gender and body type cannot be reliably used to predict a person's intent. If you maintain this way of thinking, you'll open yourself up to being hurt more often by bad people. Story 12. I'm a bar manager, and the other night a girl harmed my security guard. I phoned the police who came in about 45 minutes and she was still there, just waiting for them to show up. She could have simply left. And she was screaming at us that we have no idea what it's like to be a minority, true, and no idea what it's like to be a woman, true, and no idea what it's like to be the victim of mistreatment, not true, and was also not relevant for that night. She was not arrested and no charges were laid after she literally harmed another human being and was trespassing on our property and seemed to be either on substances she shouldn't have been or needed substances she wasn't on. My security guard was furious about the situation and said, "If that was a guy, I would have knocked him out long ago." I'm not advocating for women being harmed for things that a man would be harmed for. I'm saying that it's very frustrating to see that the same patience and restraint wouldn't be shown to a man who did the same things. It's a tough situation because I don't think either gender gets treated well in that situation. Women are dismissed as crazy, men are simply harmed and dismissed. There has to be something in between that works for both. I think this is a kind of where the quote-unquote Karen trend stems from. Story 13. I've been taken advantage of, ignored, mocked by men in the garage and vehicle industry. Send a man in and they'll talk to him straight and get business done. Real life story. I was a teenager then. Now I'm definitely more assertive about things, but sometimes it just makes me seem like a moody woman in a man's eyes. Got my oil changed, parked in a lot the next day, pulled up to the curb like I usually do. The skid plate was not put back properly, and instead of the car clearing the curb, the hanging plate got smashed and crumpled. So I drive home and get under the car to tape it up so it doesn't drag on the pavement. Take it back to the shop, they lift the car, and the boss man brings me in to see it. Two other guys my age are there, so one guy starts up and says, "Did your boyfriend tape this up for you? You did a nice job." I replied, "No, I did it." Then the boss man says, "We can remove the skid plate for you. It's okay to drive around without it on." I tell him that it's a lease and needs to be replaced. He states a price to replace the skid plate, $400. I remind him of why I'm there. I had my oil changed the other day. My skid plate wouldn't look like this if it was put back on right. He dismisses me and says there's nothing they can do except remove it. I get home and tell my grandpa what happened. He's furious. He goes to the garage, comes back home and says they're going to replace the plate. He said the boss admitted that this kind of thing happens once in a while. The guys removing the plates don't always get all the screws back in. It's infuriating, and this stuff happens all the time. A woman shouldn't be given a completely different scenario than a man in these situations. Story 14. Women can't be predators. I have many friends that have been told, "You're a dude, you can't be mistreated," while they were. I understand that there is a lot of misinformation around there, and communication of urges isn't something we humans do well, but still. I had a friend who was chased down in high school hallway and almost bare publicly for a quote-unquote joke by females in our year. All he was able to do was smile and pick up his clothes. Hormones can be a nuisance for everyone. Men need to know how to handle aggression while women don't. From an early age, if someone is aggressive, it is pretty clear that there are consequences for that. For being aggressive, it either escalates into proper arguments or it is stopped by a third party. So being all freely-neely aggressive doesn't make your words heard but gets you in trouble, and one needs to learn how to escalate or de-escalate such situations. So if someone is loud, in your face, they automatically know where it will lead to, so they either have a pretty good reason why they would risk it, or they are prepared to de-escalate it when their words are done and make amends. But in the past few centuries, women haven't been exempted from that escalation due to the "don't hurt a woman" clause in social contracts. But after 50 to 60 times, that clause starts fading away, and now women don't know how to handle aggression. We, as people, are made to escalate things, be it for food, or the good thing, or for something else. So arguing is a natural escalation for aggression. So when aggression threatens to escalate, it is often a man's job to de-escalate it. If a man and woman have an argument, it is the man's job to crawl back and apologize. If a woman is aggressive in the form that she threatens, it is the man's job not to exert harm even if he is under one. I had a boss in this pub I used to work in. She was an intimidator and scary one to boot. Once I talked back to her and she ended up entering my space, pushing me against a corner and throwing all different utensils at me. If it was a man, I would just attempt to lay him flat then and there, but because it was a woman, I had to say, "Please don't do that. Please don't violate my space. You don't know what you're asking for." And when she continued, I had a choice to withstand it for an uncertain amount of time or do something about it. So I grabbed her and pushed her at the kitchen counter, and at that time, no de-escalation method worked, no talk sufficed, nothing I would do, aside of what I have done, and would stop it. It was to the point that only a show of strength of greater measure would stop that confrontation. I didn't harm her, albeit it must have hurt, and when I, of course, got fired, the male partner sat me down and said, "You need to learn how to deal with it. It is your job as a man to de-escalate it. She is a woman. You shouldn't have harmed her." So to anyone who reads this, I am personally torn between how it went and whether it was okay or not. But there is a point here. If you use threatening words, be prepared to fight back. Otherwise, there are better ways to deal with the situation. And if you're being entertained with the video so far, please don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 15. Guy here. One double standard that I've benefited from, but I still find very saddening. Guys being praised as being great with kids for doing the bare minimum. I used to date someone who had a very young sister. I remember taking the three of us to see a Disney movie at the theater. I was holding the little sister's hand while we were waiting in line, and a woman in line behind us said to me, "I can tell you're going to be a great dad." She didn't say, "I can tell you two are going to be great parents." She just said it to me for holding a kid's hand to keep her from wandering off. She was also wrong. I don't want kids, ever. But more to the point, it just made me sad that, apparently, The standards for being a good parent are so much lower for men than for women. So much is expected of mothers, but apparently so little is expected of guys that any random schmuck can be declared a good father by accident. Now that's really depressing. Yeah, I think that the bar should be lower for women too and raised to the same standard for men. Story 16. This isn't as common around bush people, but when city people go out to visit the bush and try to run your home because you're a woman, but if you live with a man, they don't try to mess around with your house. My ex-husband had some friends over one evening, and when he left to get a load of wood, all of a sudden the men that were visiting him were in my kitchen telling me to be careful around the fire, telling me the bucket is heavy, stroking my fire, moving my coals, telling me how to make bannock. One even dared to take my own axe out of my hand while I was chopping wood. When my husband came back from the wood haul, they stopped and started boasting about how they were apparently quote-unquote helping. Meanwhile, my old neighbor was a man who actually needed help and none of his city friends checked on him for the winter. Also, where I come from, people don't really retire. We work till we're gone and women are being encouraged to retire, but men are just left to be like, if you really think retirement is an issue, bug the men about it as well. Men deserve to rest as well. Story 17. Boys can blurt out weird things and be as immature as they want and they still have a lot of friends. If you do weird things as a girl, no one wants to be your friend. In my experience, boys are more accepting of weird and think it's funny. Some of the weirdest guys I know have the most friends at school, while all the girls that are a little odd are ostracized and treated as others. I'm mostly a quiet kid, so I get ignored more than anything, but I feel if I'm truly myself, the circle of girls will push me out. Not that I'm really in the in group. All my friends are outside of school, so I'm a little lonely when I'm there. This isn't true for everyone, and my school is pretty small and everyone knows each other. But boys seem more accepting of each other and are willing to be friends with the nerdier, quiet kids and often lift them up and support them. While when you're a girl, you're expected to fit the cookie-cutter personality of everyone else, otherwise you get gossiped about to no end. And this isn't bashing on girls in general because I am one myself and I'm pretty girly, all things considered. It's just the culture that teaches girls to be this way. And this isn't true for all, of course. I have a feeling most girls at my school don't really like how it is, and I should try to get to know them personally. Sometimes I fall into the gossip trap myself because I want to be accepted. Story 18. In the US, the patriarchy has led to a severe crisis in masculinity. Men aren't given emotional support, are viewed as worthless if they aren't making at least $100,000 annually, are taught not to have emotions other than anger and also not to show anger because it scares people, and are viewed as an existential threat to women and to children. Culture and society are changing rapidly. When it comes to gender issues, things are improving for everyone but cisgender men. To be clear, I'm not trying to say that trans people have it easier than cisgender men or anything like that. But the rate of improvement for non-cis men is much better than for cis men. But cis men feel lonely, isolated, cut off, left behind, afraid of being accused of crimes for looking at the wrong person at the wrong time. The quote-unquote American dream tells us what we're supposed to be, and we're not really given any alternatives to the impossible self-made millionaire propaganda. In my opinion, boys are being heavily radicalized into incels and white this because they don't have healthy narratives to emulate or see options for their futures. They're only taught to be strong. Thankfully, modern feminism is for everyone and helps address these issues, but it's a slow change and still controversial to discuss for some reason. Story 19. Some girl stole my brother's phone in high school and he immediately attempted to get it back, so he had to grab it, thus being in contact with her, but not inappropriately. He had several witnesses, mostly guys, and he got his phone back. Guess what happened? Next day, the principal and student disciplinary guy call him into the office and say that the girl and her parents are accusing him of mistreatment. What does he have to say for himself? Without even asking his side of the story, they immediately call for him to apologize. He refused to speak without his parents present, so that Friday they all met and the principal and SD guy all meet and they say they have 2 other girls witness testimony that this happened. Well, my parents, being prepared, got 5 other guys who were friends of my brother and another girl in the area to all give the same witness testimony that the girl stole his phone, a heavy crime in my state since it is over $500, and can have police sweep for fingerprints and would be happy to press theft against her and to sue the school for immediately taking her side without listening to my brother's side of the story. To sum it up, the school immediately dropped it, but held a seminar about how if someone takes your phone or property, you shouldn't do anything to get it back. What? I was away at college, so when I heard about the incident, I was so mad I couldn't do anything for my younger brother, and that the school I went to just went to do him like that. Schools are stacked against boys and young men in modern day society. Story 20. One I do not care for is dress code double standards. I had a job where every day men had to wear a dress shirt, had to be an actual dress shirt with a stiff collar, button-down collars were not allowed, tie, slacks, and lace-up shoes. You could not loosen your tie or unbutton your collar or roll up your sleeves, which I never minded, honestly. When clients visited, of course, it meant a full suit. A vest was strongly encouraged, meaning you would hear about it in your next review if you didn't wear a three-piece suit for visits. However, the women would wear short skirts, sandals, and t-shirts. Allow me to expand on this as it is getting some traction and I do not want to be misunderstood. Dress codes are messed up for both men and women. In a professional environment, men will boil in a collar and tie while women will freeze. While it can be uncomfortable to wear a collar and tie for 9 to 12 hours a day, heels, enter the chat and laugh because nothing is worse than compulsory high heels for women, literal, measurable bone and cartilage damage. Also, dress codes seem to be written for men because it is easy for a man, the easiest. You know exactly what you are supposed to wear. Telling a woman that a dress code is business casual is like giving them a 5 by 5 by 5 Rubik's Cube to solve on what in the world does that even mean? So please, nobody take offense to anything regarding genders in this topic. It is messed up all the way around. I say to fix it, drop gender-specific clothing. I would love the freedom of saving 20 minutes by just slipping into a sheathed dress instead of a full suit. And I would say dress codes aren't a double standard, just a stupid standard. Both parties have it bad. Story 21. Thanksgiving or Christmas gatherings where the men sit around and watch football while the women cook, prepare, help with chores. It's something I only started noticing a few years ago. Women and girls are more likely to get up and help if they see someone else working for their sake without being asked. Men and boys will not even notice until they're asked to help, take out trash or something. And they make a big fuss of it because the game's on. I've seen this both on my mom's, white side, and my dad's, black side. Even worse is that this isn't strictly a men versus women thing. The women leading will often ask other girls first to help, and not even think to ask the men, so girls become conditioned to see it as their job to offer help in the kitchen, while boys, because they are rarely, if ever, asked, sit around and do nothing like the other older men. Caveat, I am American and both sides of the family are Christian. Not sure if this is a cultural thing or not, but I see this constantly. It's really irritating once you notice it. Story 22. This might be a little niche, but in the military, women get so many exceptions and different standards. We're all supposed to stay fit within certain standards and are tested twice a year for it. Women test scores are calculated differently just because they're women, and it's so much easier for women to pass than men. If we need to be fit, why is a standard different? We have to have the standard military haircut, buzz cut, high and tight, etc. The actual rule is no hair can touch the ears or collar of the shirt, and the rest of the hair can't be more than 1/4 inch away from the scalp. Women, none of this applies. They can have their hair down to their feet as long as they put it up in a bun. No bun? No problem. They can have it long and loose as long as it doesn't go beyond their collar. If we have to have haircuts for a reason like chemical warfare or professionalism, why is the standard different for women? Being the military, the standard men stereotype is pervasive to the point that if I'm asked to lift something super heavy that might injure me, it's no big deal. But they never ask women to, and if they're asked, no one blinks twice when they say they can't. But if I say I can't, I probably get in trouble. Why have women in these jobs if they aren't expected to perform the same? I do know women have similar gripes and complain that the military coddles them, but I'm a man, so I couldn't give you the full rundown of female complaints. Story 23. The idea that a child needs their mother more than father, which results in a father who has his act together, able to manage a budget and run a household no problem, but manages to lose the children in the divorce to a mother who is clearly not fit to be a mother, basically forcing her children to raise themselves. Only reason my mother lost custody of me is because she was living in the most dangerous trailer park in the state, yet she got to keep custody of my sisters because they have a different father. Either that or the fact that if a man and woman are intoxicated and sleep together, the woman can't consent and thus has been mistreated by the man, despite the fact that the man also could not give consent. Also, how it's typically always a woman in cleaning commercials doing all the cleaning. I want to see a Swiffer commercial like an Old Spice commercial. some dude pulling out the Swiffer and talking about how important it is to save time while keeping things clean. Story 24. In professional situations, when producing a factual case, I am labeled as emotional with zero acknowledgement of my valid, informed points because, I believe, being female, I need to be put in my place and accept gatekeeping. I am their new supervisor. Several times now, I made professional, detailed responses with point-by-point hurdles. What I get back is a group reply labeling me as a manipulating defeatist, making people feel like it's undoable. Or the other response, sorry you are offended. I answer the work-related questions with factual, respectful responses. Unfortunately, they don't align with those men's point of view. When they have no legitimate response, let's go ad hominem and gaslight. If a man wrote my response, there would be, good points, let's look at this, kind of responses. I know because the other supervisor, a man, wrote the email with my words, and he was seen as logical and non-emotional and given some professional courtesy. Up yours, misogynist anachronisms. Hope you all retire soon. Story 25. I either have to pay extra to play a female character in a game, or that female character's clothing or story options are completely and disgustingly objectified, something that male characters seldom seem to struggle with. For example, I play World of Warcraft. Earlier today, on a male character of mine, I picked up an interesting piece of leg armor that I plan to use with my female character of the same class. However, upon visiting the transmogrifier, the person that changes the appearance of armor, I found that the awesome leg armor had turned into what was essentially a glorified bikini. Like, why? Why can't I have a cool female character? And it's not just the armor either. In the character creation menu, just switching between the female and male options makes me insanely angry. Male options vary. Trolls look entirely different from elves, worgans from goblins, etc. But the moment you switch to a female, the only difference becomes skin color and height. Honestly, I'd just be happy if they just added an option to look more like the target race. The excuse for all of this that I hear most often is that the player base is mostly male, but I know for a fact that I'm not the only woman that plays the game. Surely, with all the flack Blizzard has endured from WoW, Overwatch, and basically every other game they've come out with, you'd think they'd make some kind of changes. But at best, they're superficial and used only for the purpose of short-term placation. And the same goes for a lot of games and game companies. It's as if they don't believe women should ever be catered to in the same way that men are. Story 26. The infamous toilet seat up-down debate. A woman needs the seat down, so a man should put it down so she doesn't have to do anything. A man needs it up to avoid splashing it. He's expected to put it up and then put it down. He has to do two things. It takes a woman just as much effort to put down the seat as it takes a man putting it up. Why is a man inconsiderate if he doesn't put the seat down? Because that's what the women need. And a woman is not considerate if she doesn't put the seat back up, because that's what the men need. How about everyone just puts the seat wherever it needs to be before pissing and everyone stops complaining about it? Here at home, we have a much better rule. Toilet seat and lid down after use serves one important reason. It keeps the cats from drinking out of the toilet. Story 27. Maybe this is more along the lines of how my state does things and isn't a double standard everywhere, but I will still say it. Around here, it is next to impossible for a man to get full custody of his child when a sour relationship happens. Everyone talks about horrible dads, but no one seems to realize that women can be just the same. I have a friend who is a father. The mother got on substances, was sleeping around, and was mistreating and neglectful. This started happening when his kid was still just a toddler. All the signs were there, yet he had fought until she was near a teenager just to get full custody, so the kid was out of this terrible household. The mother failed many tests. The child talked about how there were always scary men coming in and out of the house to their authorities. There were pictures and videos of the inside of the house, and it wasn't pretty. Trash overflowing the trash cans, empty pantry and fridge, literal old dog mess on the floors, etc. Hell, the child didn't even appear cared for. She looked like she hadn't had a bath in weeks, and there was always some kind of horrendous bruise that couldn't even be chalked up to just falling down or bumping something. I remember when she was a kid, the father came to my house upset and in tears. He had visitation and he was upset because he had to give her back to the mother. And when she was told she had to go back, she broke down in tears and begged to stay. All of this because the state thought it was impossible for a woman to be a terrible mother, while the default for men was they couldn't care enough for a child regardless. The court's excuse was always, well, she birthed her, so she has the right. It didn't just happen with my friend either. Just before this battle, a man actually ended it all because he was hopeless in ever getting any rights to his biological child. If my friend was a woman, this wouldn't have drawn out so long. To make it worse, he genuinely wasn't a bad person. He never went to jail, save for one time as a teen where he was held overnight for being intoxicated. He passed every test that came his way. He had a big house with acres of land and even horses. His own mother lived in a house nearby. Hell, when his kid said that she didn't like him smoking, he quit just for her. He ended up getting full custody, and he has been a great single parent. She has stability in her life now. Though this had a happy ending, I can't help but think about all the fathers that watch their kids live in terrible conditions with no power over anything. The fathers who never even got to see their kids at all thanks to a double standard. Story 28. I think it's mostly a double standard but still gender, so it's okay for groups of guys and girls to mix, but it's frowned upon when you're the only of your gender in the friend group. My story on this, also my sister's, I was pestered by some moms in elementary school for hanging out with girls because I was a boy and that shouldn't be happening. Then my sister had male friends because she liked to play and she hated that girls would just not do anything fun. The other moms would talk bad about her for playing with boys, and whenever she would hang out with girls, the moms would push her away. Once, a girl told my sister, "My mom doesn't want me to hang out with you because you'll turn me into a boy like you." Honestly, many moms are monsters. We changed schools, got new friends from both genders, and are currently in college. What goes around comes around. Many of these moms has had husbands who cheated on them, left them, or found someone better. The rest just had their daughter be in mistreating relationships or with boyfriends without a future. Some of them met me years after and would often talk highly of me or my sister. And from those, a couple actually wanted me to meet their daughters because, quote, I was such a brilliant young man with a bright future. I'm studying accounting, then law, and my sister is going for medical doctor in trauma. Now, I don't support mistreating relationships or cheating, but some people walk a path that leads them into their own and their families' demise. Story 29. I guess not really a double standard, but maybe socially awkward guys are looked at by girls as creepy. I'm a pretty active member of a fraternity and don't consider myself a socially awkward guy. I actually think I'm quite adept socially. I've seen on many occasions my good, incredibly passionate and interesting friends be ignored and gossiped about behind their backs because they're uncomfortable in a flirting situation. But they want romance, and I continue to encourage them to make that effort. But seeing so many girls be so mean to them is making me lose hope. How can they find someone if no one even gives them a chance? On the other side of the coin, socially awkward girls are encouraged by both men and women to socialize. It's like their support system is double that of what guys get. This is all from my own experience, and I'm not speaking for the rest of the world, but with that said, I get the feeling that this is just how it is. What do you guys think? Story 30. At one point in my life, I ran summer programs and cooking programs for children and absolutely loved it. I'm really good with kids and playing with them and teaching them fundamental concepts in a way that's easy to understand. It lets me tap into my inner child and actually enjoy myself and get a break from reality for a short time. What I hate, though, is that if I'm talking to any child outside of a professional setting, I can be viewed as a creep, which bothers me because I feel like I have much to share with children. You're walking down the street with a young child. A middle-aged woman approaches you and says, "What a cute little boy, what's your name?" while casually putting her hand on his shoulder. I see nothing wrong with this because I'm accustomed to double standards from a young age. You're walking down the street with a young child again. A middle-aged man approaches you and says, "What a cute little girl, what's your name?" while casually putting his hand on her shoulder. Same story, but swap genders. Feels different, doesn't it?
What's the biggest double standard in society? To me, there seems to be an acceptable double standard whereby men who make comment on women who have smaller melons or less voluptuous body features are, rightly, viewed as disgusting, misogynistic, judgmental, superficial, and cruel schmucks. But in Western cultures, at least, it seems like it's still fair game for women. And as a non-straight man myself, to, in a very superficial, judgmental, and cruel way, a misandrist in the female case, misandry being the female version of misogynist, joke or ridicule or reject or make fun of men with small and even average-sized thing. I actually know several women and non-straight men who flat out state that they are size queens, as though using that term somehow normalizes and makes acceptable their act of judging and discriminating against men who are small to average in size, down there. And probing via conversation with people like this, whereby I've asked them, don't you think that those comments you make are as cruel and superficial as when hetero men or lesbian women judge women for their body? I've been shocked by some comments, with several responding with comments like, no, it's different because a thing needs to serve a function of satisfying me, and if it's too small, I don't want it, because it won't satisfy me. as though making jokes and rejecting men based on size is somehow strictly a utilitarian preference as opposed to being superficial and misandrist. One thing men are lucky for, I guess, is unlike women's sizes, which are easy to observe and judge upon even when fully clothed, with men we can hide our thing size with clothing whilst on the street so people never truly know what we're packing and can't judge us on the street for that. Well, outside of gray sweatpants, which can bring its own, shall we say, transparency to the streetscape. Also helps that some men are growers, not showers, and the superficial judgment is actually made upon the full size. There's further mystery about how big a man actually is because on the street, people can never really know their true size because they haven't seen it in full mast. But many women and gay men do talk and gossip, and if a man happens to have a thing size in the spectral ends of the bell curve, excuse the reference, jokes, it becomes spread about them in certain circles anyway. It is still seemingly socially acceptable for women to ridicule men who aren't six-pack abs, super muscly biceps or triceps, and really just have average or, heaven forbid, fatter bodies. This is changing a bit, and there's in recent years a big excitability towards dad bods as though this solves everything. But it's almost as though when a woman or a non-straight man proudly states, "I love me a dad bod," that this is intended as an act of defiance or something outside the norm. The norm or acceptable standard being, of course, six-pack abs and biceps of steel. I think we should all just embrace our imperfections. After all, isn't that what makes us unique? Story 2. Pretty or skinny privilege. Especially when it comes to women. Pretty and thin women are generally treated so much nicer than those who lack one or either of those. After I cut my hair short, I was shocked by how rude men, especially, but surprisingly also women, became towards me. No more friendly, polite smiles. No more holding the door open when I have my hands full with bags. No more friendly chatter waiting for the elevator. Just formality. Thin women or girls in friend groups are even picked out as the only complimentary object in gatherings. It was not too long ago when I was out shopping for jeans, so I went into this outlet store that had huge sales on high-quality garments. And there was this group of girls, teenagers, who were shopping together and trying on clothes, the usual. The problem was, as I have sadly seen many times before, the clerk only complimented the thinnest girl on how the clothes looked on her. She just ignored the other girls or gave some lighthearted comments here and there. It was so frustrating to watch, and it probably did nothing to those other girls' self-esteem. Like, you're a 50-ish-year-old woman and those girls are probably like 14. Have some damn self-awareness. People also generally don't comment on the food choices of thin people, but they love to give offhanded comments and advice to bigger or overweight people, as if they're children unable to make choices for themselves. The thing about pretty or skinny privilege is that people address it online, but never in real life, and especially not when they witness or experience it firsthand. It's just that elephant in the room everyone is aware of, but never comments on. Story 3. Men being mistreated or made to feel uncomfortable, physically, emotionally, etc. Men can be victims in a society where they're supposed to be powerful and dominant. That being said, it seems few women these days entertain or appreciate masculinity. So the more men become gentle and docile to attract women, they can more easily fall victim to being mistreated, etc. The real problem is it's right in front of us and nobody takes it seriously. Jimmy Bennett and Johnny Depp are examples of men being taken advantage of by women, and look what happened there. So everyone is giving me nonsense about Johnny Depp. All I know about that case is what I read about it. I wasn't present in the courtroom, but I was present for the allegations Amber Heard had made, and everyone calling me a misogynist for saying we should wait for more evidence. Then look at what happened. Someone commented that an ex-wife has nothing to do with another wife when it comes to cruelty. That's funny because Johnny Depp's ex-wife served as a character witness during that trial. Secondly, nobody said anything about Jimmy Bennett. Does anybody know about that case? How Asia Argentino publicly called out Harvey Weinstein at an award show because of his disgusting allegations? What happened to her? Oh, during the investigation against Weinstein, it was discovered that she had been mistreated by her co-star and tried to blame it on him. But we know what happened to Depp, Heard, and of course Weinstein. What happened to Asia Argento and Jimmy Bennett's case? Women wanted Weinstein's head in a platter, but Rose McGowan, who also called out Weinstein and filmed content together about men mistreating women, only for McGowan to say that the penal system should handle Argento. She wanted a man to be burned at the stake, but a woman should stand trial. Interesting, to say the least. Story 4. The difference between how overweight men and women are treated. Overweight women are always told they're beautiful no matter what, celebrated in the media, and encouraged to embrace their size. Overweight men, on the other hand, are ridiculed by everyone. Called fat and ugly, and overweight characters in TV shows and movies are always the center of the jokes. I can't remember the last time I ever saw an overweight man get told he's handsome the way he is. A great example is garments modeling. Women's garments are now shown by models of every size, from healthy weight right up until borderline obese. I've never seen male garments be modeled by any guy who wasn't absolutely jacked, hairless, and in the top 1% of attractiveness. Story 5. I saw a post in a Facebook group I'm in recently. It was a selfie of a mother with her little boy in the back seat eating a pudding cup, and she had captioned it, "Making sure he's making his future girlfriends happy," or something along those lines. I was disgusted by it. My boyfriend laughed. He tried to tell me I was being stuck up and a prude about it. I asked him if I was a father posting a picture of his daughter eating a popsicle and captioned it similar to making future boyfriends happy. Would you feel the same way? It looked like I slapped him in the face, but he instantly got what I was saying. Categorizing children in any capacity is gross as hell, and it even happens to little boys. People just need to do better and let kids simply be kids without putting intimate undertones to it. So freaking weird. It's like those parents address their toddlers. Just let the kids be kids, people. Story 6. People are encouraged to reach out and ask for help when they're struggling with mental health, but still stigmatized if they have mental illness. I would say people are encouraged to reach out for help, but most mental health services are sorely lacking. In college, I remember all these materials encouraging students to access counseling services if needed. I tried to do so, half a dozen times, and the wait list, the hoops you have to jump through, etc., just made the whole process disheartening and stifling, and eventually, I just gave up. I was trying to help an acquaintance of mine who is poor and has a lot of mental health issues. I tried reaching out on her behalf to a lot of the services that promote themselves as being available for her demographic. In the end, it all fell through in a way pretty similar to my other experience above. In a progressive city like mine, there are tons of flyers you see around town, in buses, the local media, outed by government officials, for mental health and other social services that make it seem like all you have to do is reach out and ask. From my experience, these services are usually a complete train wreck, and actually being able to access them is near impossible. I've worked in social work, so I've tried to hook people up with these things a lot. Story 7. I solely raised my daughter as a single father from the time she was a year old until she was almost 6 when I married my wife. The number of people who have asked about my daughter's mother just to reply with, "Oh, she must have had PPD," or "There must be a mental illness involved," or "Maybe she will come around in a few years," is absolutely staggering. Like, no man, she just decided she wanted to go to a party instead of being a mom to her child. No child support, no financial or emotional contribution, nothing. Hell, I can even get a copy of my daughter's health insurance card when her old one expired because I wasn't on the paperwork, despite the fact that I was the one who filled out the paperwork for it at the hospital the day after she was born. It's infuriating, knowing full well that had the roles been reversed and I'd have been the one to leave, I'd 100% instantly be considered a useless father. Story 8. Responses to pestering in general are just all over the place. We know it's bad, we don't want it to happen, but just roll over and accept it as inevitable. I really think a lot of focus needs to be placed on zero-tolerance policies because they're just dumb. How do you stop an oppressor? Punch them is one of the go-to responses. It won't stop until you stand up to them. It's somewhat accurate, but it creates a feedback loop. Violence is the only answer. It's just a matter of who's perpetrating it. So the bully is violent towards the victim, but if the victim responds or defends themselves, then both parties are punished. If the victim doesn't respond, then they're just a victim and will continue to be a victim. Well, then guess there's no solution. Might as well hand everyone a pair of boxing gloves when they're born. Or, and this is just spitballing, we look at the root cause of the pestering. Research has shown that kids who bully generally come from problematic households. They are generally seeking attention, and violence gets them that attention. Hurt people hurt people. Those problematic households generally have one thing in common: poverty. How about we fix the social safety nets and allow all kids to grow up in stable, loving homes? Eliminate disparity and you eliminate a lot of problems that disparity creates. Story 9. People with low-functioning special needs tend to receive more patience, compassion, and understanding than the average high-functioning autistic. My brother is autistic and will most likely need round-the-clock care the rest of his life. Even some of the nastiest people in my family are kind to him. I've met a handful of autistic people who can work and go to school. They tend to get pestered or straight up shunned because they're odd to other people or sound very robotic. One coworker at a call center I had worked at a few years back was not liked by our team, even our supervisor. He invited us to his lavish apartment in the rich part of town that he somehow afforded and a salary for a housewarming party. I don't know why he chose a luxury apartment, and I wondered if it was a status move on his part. Only me, my now boyfriend, and a girl in our team who had gold digger Instagram model vibes came. When he spoke in a group or to me in conversation, he seemed stiff or tense to me. Not weird. Spoke a bit slowly like he was choosing his words as he spoke in real time. When he got fired for not following instruction multiple times in his calls, it was a shame, because he made good sales. Another woman in our team revealed to us in a huddle that he told her he was autistic. There was not much care for that fact because he was seen as irresponsible for his housing choices and moving states just to pursue his dream of being a DJ. It clicked for me at that moment why he was considered strange. He was probably proficient enough to get a job and speak, but did not have all the social tools and likely compensated with masking. I was surprised I didn't realize the signs because I have a nonverbal sibling. Every time I met or befriended someone who was high-functioning, I never realized until they revealed it. Some were well-adjusted and some rubbed me the wrong way. Story 10. The double standard between women, especially teenage girls, being fans of things and men being fans of things. It's deemed as somewhat normal and almost to be expected that men go absolutely mental over sport, especially things like football, to the point that when there are football games on, the local police are usually on standby to deal with the riots and fights that usually happen, and that's just kind of seen as part of it, and to be expected, and it's just people being passionate. On the other hand, if you get a group of teenage girls getting a bit excited over something like, I don't know, a BTS concert or a Taylor Swift show or something, suddenly that's deemed weird and stupid and they get dragged for it. It's literally the same thing. The latter is also far less disruptive, yet is the thing that is always demonized. It's not a new thing either. It goes back as far as the Beatles and Elvis, where it was just passed off as ridiculous hysteria. Meanwhile, you've got a Brexit geezer going absolutely feral because Manchester United lost. Low-key angers me off a lot that anything women and teenage girls like is demonized, yet things like sport get a free pass. I'm pretty sure the collective screaming of 50,000 teenage girls at a Taylor Swift concert is less destructive than a single misplaced pass during a football match. Story 11. Today I met a Spanish couple living in Germany for 14 years. They were on a train that was supposed to go to the airport, but suddenly it changed plans due to early arrival. This was announced, but they didn't understand because they spoke no German. They didn't understand what was about to happen, but they realized that something was wrong, so they decided to approach me and ask for help. The woman was dictating the question to her phone in Spanish, but I speak Spanish, so I understood and immediately answered her question. Turned out we were all heading to the airport and were soon about to take the same flight to Spain, so we sat together and started chatting. It was a nice chat until we started talking about recent protests against tourists and foreigners in Spain. At this point, you've probably guessed it, but they were unhappy with foreigners that didn't speak Spanish but lived in Spain. When I started asking uncomfortable questions, they came up with thousands of excuses and insisted it wasn't the same thing. You have kids who speak German and do everything for us. German is harder than Spanish. Germans are impatient with foreigners learning the language and so on. P.S. I'm neither German nor Spanish. I was just a neutral referee trying to make sense of their position. The fact is that the absolute majority of people who discriminate against foreigners based on language would also be unable to learn language as adults if lived in another country. But this discrimination is perfectly normalized here in Europe. Story 12. Mistreatment in the workplace is a very big one that I've seen firsthand on several occasions. I work in an OR, and the amount of times the female nurses will openly do something with the men or make comments toward doctors is astounding. I'm not talking about simple remarks. I mean things like, I'm just saying, I know you're married, but if you want to just sleep together later, tell your wife you're on call and we can go to my place. Being 100% serious. It got so bad between one male nurse and a female tech who was obsessed with him that he actually requested not to be put in an OR with her again. Our director laughed it off as, oh, that's just so-and-so. However, another instance was this older male nurse who mentioned one day he liked a new female tech's hair color, and she immediately reported him to our director and stated he made her feel uncomfortable. He was immediately taken out of her room and now can't even work the same days as her. So yeah, men do it. It's horrific. Women do it and it's funny. Story 13. Here's one that always angers me off. Mental health awareness and personal hygiene. People will say stuff like, reach out to friends who might be depressed. But I told a friend that I had been struggling to brush my teeth regularly because of a mental health spiral, and they went, ew, really? In general, people seem shocked when someone mentions that personal hygiene takes effort plus energy you might not be able to expend while experiencing the complete disillusion of the soul. Oh, so people struggle to shower regularly when depressed? Yeah, Karen. People will literally end themselves when they're too depressed. Irregular hygiene, while not ideal, isn't that unlikely. Story 14. People having faith in spiritual beliefs being stigmatized and subjugated, while people having faith in scientific beliefs is exalted and sanctified. Both are predicated upon faith, belief in that which we cannot prove with certitude. Science is inherently probabilistic and involves biases all throughout that we like to pretend aren't in play, as if science is the objective arbiter of the truth, and whatever science says, so it is. Science is meaningless without our speculation and interpretation as to what it means. There's so many assumptions, beliefs predicated upon faith that underlie the scientific method, without which it makes no sense, becoming utterly nonsensical. Not to mention that the theoretical protocols related to doing science properly are regularly wantonly disregarded, rendering the whole enterprise empirically flawed. Last but not least, there are myriad ulterior motives that deliberately distort the research, e.g. p-hacking for narcissistic self-adulation and/or for greedily acting at the behest of various powers that bewitch have hijacked many of the individuals and institutions that constitute the scientific enterprise so as to manipulate the public psyche into thinking particular ways as a means of attaining and maintaining power, oftentimes through the medium of making more money and keeping people in check, forcing them to stay in their lanes, to mind their own business, to pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Story 15. Claiming to be pro-life and insisting all life is equally important, but you're 100% okay with forcing women to suffer through pregnancies that compromise their health and the baby's health. Bonus points when the baby is an unviable pregnancy or a stillborn, and you're still okay with forcing a woman to carry to full term. Doctors recommending a termination to save a woman's life. The baby's likely going to pass away if not already passed. Giving birth could end her. And someone who claims to be pro-life is asking, what about the baby? Double bonus points to the pro-life who want to swoop in and claim this never happens when they know it does happen. Ever since RVW was overturned, it's been an issue. Story 16. A couple years ago, I told a story on Reddit about this girl giving me a whistle, and every time I was getting close, she would scrape it with her teeth. I told her the first 3 times to stop doing that. She didn't. I got so mad that I put my clothes on and left her apartment. Despite explaining clearly that she did it on purpose and that I had told her that was painful, that post went into more detail. I still got downvoted to oblivion. Called a bunch of insulting things and got told stupid stuff like I hurt her feelings because she was probably inexperienced and didn't know what she was doing. Imagine what the reaction would be if it was a girl saying how the sky kept biting hard into her despite her telling him a few times to stop. Story 17. The women are socially responsible for everyone's intimate health. And I don't just mean shouldering the burden of birth control, although that's part of it. Most women also get an intimate health exam annually, which includes getting an STD panel if they are active. How many men do you know who get regular STD screening? You can thank the women for everyone not all walking around with syphilis or HPV. Speaking of HPV, it's also standard for women to get Gardasil, which is the HPV medicine. I have a friend who is male who recognizes the double standard, and he asked his doctor if he can get the Gardasil medicine course also. The doctor was initially baffled because men just aren't expected to get it, and even started arguing with him about it until the doctor had to wait a second, realizing himself that there's just no reason why men cannot or should not get the medicine either, and agreed to give it to him. Men are just as capable of contracting HPV as women. Most women who contract it, it's because they got it from a male partner. Medicine is just as effective in men as it is in women. The only difference is that men will at worst get warts from HPV, while women will at worst pass away from cervical cancer. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 18. This is a gender double standard that I've seen in movies. It's where the moral of the story for the female protagonist is that the popular handsome guy that you think you like is not actually the guy for you. It was your male best friend that has been fawning over you for ages and would do anything for you that was the right guy for you all along. It's a good message that we should be deconstructing beauty standards, but I've almost never seen this applied to films with a male protagonist. The male protagonist always performs some tasks to get the girl of their dreams rather than realizing that their desire was just vanity, and beauty was in front of them the whole time. For the life of me, I cannot remember a single film where they try to deconstruct beauty standards in this way with a male protagonist, except for Shark Tale. Freaking Shark Tale. Story 19. That it is common knowledge that mental illness is the cause of the worst types of violent crime. Everyone is aware that perpetrators are almost always charged, tried, convicted, and sentenced as competent. Not only does this not make any sense, but it's a huge loss to society as these types of mental illnesses need to be studied relentlessly in controlled scientific conditions. The desire for revenge still outweighs the desire for prevention, early detection, or prediction. It's backwards. And another thing, The people who wage the worst crimes, the ones who end up by the thousands in the name of resources, who are billionaires through the use of slaves, sweatshop, or child labor, those who literally are destroying the actual planet. Not euphemism, literally, are the elite and socially considered inviolable. What the actual heck is wrong with this place? Story 20. I'm a woman and I really can't stand the way other women put down their boyfriends or husbands or significant others or a male jokingly as if it's normal. Women will act like their needs are paramount, roll their eyes to each other laughingly when their husbands or boyfriends say something they consider ridiculous. I just think it's rude. If you love someone, don't pull any of that condescending crap. The saddest part is that we've made it so normal that men think women are supposed to act like this and that being in a relationship means they will always be the center of the joke, and that's the way it goes. I hate that crap. I expect more of my fellow women and more of the men who are putting up with being regularly crapped on by the person who supposedly loves them. Story 21. People are happy to pay lip service to teachers. I'm talking preschool too. But when it comes to putting their money where their mouth is, that's when people turn and start calling teachers incompetent. The economy can't function without teachers. We saw this during the lockdown. When schools closed or stayed closed, everyone was impacted. People with children had to stay home from work or find someone to provide childcare, and people without children were forced to pick up the slack, assuming there was no work from home option for either party. So many people came out making TikToks and memes talking about how teachers were angels, deserved to be paid $1 million, etc. During the 2020 school year, no teachers I know got raises, and any raises seen since then are pretty scant. Teachers get blamed for the loss caused by virtual learning, but it was really the best thing anyone could do at the time. I got one of the most insulting emails I've ever received from a parent that was in response to a simple state of the classroom email I sent before the winter break. It was obvious that not only did the sender not closely read what I wrote, but also was threatening to go over my head to tell my principal. But I'm not sure because I've CC admin in every email. This person's main complaint was the student only had a B in the class. The student had a failing test average. Should have been thankful for that B. Story 22. This just really comes down to how you define racism. If you just define it as simple prejudice, then yes, people can dislike white people or hate white people or be prejudiced against white people. This is your definition, then yes, surely people can be prejudiced against white people. But it's important to remember that white isn't actually like an official race. It is a hodgepodge of Western society that happens to have white pale skin. That white is not an ethnicity, so it's not an apples-to-apples comparison. And some people would define racism as being a combination of race and power. Racism entails having unequal power dynamics. Black people have never been in a position to subjugate white people in the United States of America. Certainly not systematically. Certainly not literally in the form of chattel slavery, depriving them of generations of inheritances and familial relations. Honestly, do people really get canceled these days? Andrew Tate is worth $100 million or something. Joe Rogan said crazy prejudice crap and he just got like a $200 extension from Spotify. Look, he apologized for it and it happened a long time ago. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve a platform. But the point is, he wasn't canceled because he makes money for Spotify and Steven Crowder is rich despite all the prejudiced stuff he says. Prejudiced people thrive all the time in this country. Almost nobody gets deplatformed. That's what cancellation is. Like Louis C.K. was canceled. He genuinely lost like $100 million worth of movie deals and was deplatformed at almost every place he worked. You could even argue Alex Jones, but ain't nothing extreme case where he literally defamed someone's family. And even then, he's still been invited on Spotify, the largest musical media company in the world. Story 23. In the animated series Central Park, the main husband and wife are black and white respectively. They therefore have two mixed children. One voiced by Titus Burgess and the other was voiced by Kristen Bell. Neither of these actors are mixed. One is black and one is white, respectively. 3 or 4 years back when there was the great voice acting purge when it was suddenly decided that people can voice act for characters outside of their own race. This is why characters like Carl and Dr. Hibbert in The Simpsons suddenly sounded glaringly different, or why Cleveland and Family Guy got a new voice actor. Though he sounds so similar you may have never noticed. Kristen Bell was essentially forced to step down from the role and be replaced. She would be given a new character for the series a season later, so she wasn't fired, at least. Titus, meanwhile, kept his role. It's a double standard that Kristen was pressured to leave the role while Titus's role was never in question, when neither of them understand what it means to be mixed. In fact, both of them have as equal of a claim to be playing such a 50-50 mixed character, when each actor is 100% one of those 50% backgrounds and upbringings. Story 24. Female tennis players demand equal pay for unequal work. Shorter matches, fewer sets. Meanwhile, male models are dramatically underpaid compared to female models for literally the same work. Women fight for bodily autonomy, equals the right to have a termination, thinking that without it, they're unequal to men. In fact, at no point in American history have men ever had bodily autonomy, including now in 2024. Men are still routinely, legally, forced to undergo cosmetic surgery or their gender during infancy, something that women are legally protected from. Also, men have to sell their souls to the American government in the form of registering for the Selective Service in order to gain many of the rights women have automatically, without having to earn in any way. Men are quite literally second-class citizens in the United States. Yet all we ever hear about is feminism and how women need equal rights. In fact, women already have more rights than men do. In order for women to have equal rights with men, we would need to take some of women's rights away. Story 25. Even if they're not the most popular, most people generally understand that not every Christian follows the word of their Bible to a T and have room for variation in their beliefs. Almost nobody is shocked if a Christian has intimacy before marriage anymore. Islam, on the other hand, is not allowed such benefit of the doubt. This is because of the Western propaganda that followed, making the public believe that the beliefs are approximately the same as those of the average Muslim, with the exception of the violence. People don't realize how many Muslims leave their home countries precisely because of the religious leaders there are too extreme. Go talk to them. They're nice people, not as uptight as you might think. A lot of them are just scared to mingle with non-Muslims because they're afraid of the violence and discrimination that could, and does, get directed at them. Don't reply to me with excerpts from the Quran because that's exactly what my point was about. Christians get to omit or reinterpret certain aspects of the Bible that they dislike, while Muslims are held to every syllable of the Quran, with no room to deviate from it. By the way, notice how I'm not endorsing either of these religions? I don't believe in either of them. But it's messed up how disparately each is treated regardless of how the individuals in question conduct themselves. Story 26. Male nurses are often requested to leave the examination room when sensible parts of a female are going to be exposed in front of a female doctor, sometimes without giving us the chance of leaving without request and saying, "If you need my help, I'll be in the next room." I've been a registered nurse for the last 30 years and never heard or seen or been told of a female nurse requested to leave when a male zones are going to be exposed in front of a male doctor. We are all professional caregivers, but it seems like men's looks are always dirty look and women's looks are always chaste and pure. If you hear the comments between female nurses, you can easily notice that their look is far from chaste and pure. But I'm still the one requested to leave. By the way, as a male patient, I'm not always comfortable being examined in front of a woman, but I assume they're professional caregivers with no other interest in my well-being. Story 27. I'm a male in a relationship with a narcissistic woman who can be extremely emotionally cruel and will hold over my head her power over me and everything I've built up until this point, and twist it to look like I'm the horrible stereotypical male who doesn't deserve respect or understanding. This is in no way meant to diminish women who go through emotional or physical mistreatment, but to note that we're stuck too when it happens even if it seems less common. We're suffering together, just that people are so stuck in either or thinking that we're here, with a stigma that says that men are the cause, women are the victims, so men can't be mistreated. In reality, the most victims are those that are lesbian and mistreated by their partner. It's not about gender. It's about how people behave. Here I am expected to be okay every day when everything I do and try to build is based on appeasing her enough to be able to keep going in life. Story 28. In a movie, if there was a male character who was making fun of the small melons of women, then most of the mainstream media would be outraged. Rightly so. But for some stupid reason, men with small things are still mocked on TV shows and in other forms of entertainment, even though it's just the same issue as small melons, which are both things that come out of genetic luck. People are born that way. It's not right to body shame. Women with small melons are never made fun of, yet men with small things have a category that makes fun of them in a way. Also, you still see a lot of women with small melons in videos, even though many men prefer big ones. Heck, the number one in the world had small melons. But you hardly see videos which show men with small things, even though it is supposed to be progressive and inclusive if it wants to stay relevant to modern times. I think small, medium, big melons are all fine. I think small, medium, and big things are all fine. This body shaming has to stop. It's not fair on those men who have small things. The double standard has to stop. Body shaming is wrong in all its forms. Story 29. Vilifying an entire race and gender. You can be prejudiced to white people, especially white men, but it cannot be the opposite. Black people can openly say, "I don't like white people," and it's acceptable. A white person cannot say that about their own race without termination from their job, being deplatformed and deemed a racist. I think both of these attitudes towards one another are disgusting. I don't feel that way about a race. It's bothersome that someone would judge me just because of my skin color, too. Progress in race issues begins when everyone has the same social behaviors and mutual respect, not when one gets a special license to be hateful and the other is supposed to put up with it. Most things deemed prejudiced are not about race anyway. It's tribalism, a very natural thing for all of us. People with cultural similarities will always predominantly flock together. Race is the first and most obvious commonality that makes a group of people flock together. In a diverse room, Christians will naturally flock together, blacks will flock together, and so on. Everyone, without exception or even admission, is most comfortable with people that are most like them, from physical appearance to politics, interests, and beliefs. There's countless studies on it. Instead of understanding and respecting the human condition, we normalize blaming and vilifying white people because they are the majority in the proverbial room. Story 30. I feel like connecting with culture is seen very differently. I grew up in China, but I'm white, so when I moved back to America and talked about Chinese culture with people, I was often met with some degree of hostility, like I was imposing on something that didn't belong to me. At the same time, I don't necessarily feel a deep connection with cultures that would be considered mine, like Swedish, German, or Midwestern, where my ancestors were from and where my extended family lives. I think they're very interesting and I love hearing about them, but I don't feel like I associate with them because I didn't grow up around them. At the same time, I've met someone who were third or greater generation, born and raised in America, who can associate with their ancestral culture even if they hadn't grown up knowing about it or celebrating it. I'm not trying to say they shouldn't be allowed to connect with whatever culture they want to, but it seems unfair that I can't. The only people aside from family members who have no problem with me associating with the culture I grew up in are my really good friends. Story 31. There are tons of double standards when it comes to appearance. Fat shaming, skinny shaming, etc. They are rather complex, but I'm not trying to both sides of the issue. One thing that annoyed me in particular is how attractiveness is linked to hobbies. In my case, video games. Being a fat, balding guy, the video games are apparently the source of all my health issues. Talking enthusiastically about video games was met with awkwardness at best and scorn at worst. You should have more active hobbies. Playing video games is not healthy. You should get your eyes checked. It's not healthy for your posture. You should socialize more. Spend more time outside. Being fit goth femme. The video games hobby is suddenly so quirky. It's on par with drawing, singing, literature, or theater. Gone are all the unsolicited health comments. I've had friends randomly give me games in no particular occasion. Family no longer tells me to spend more time outside or socialize more. I can join in hobby conversations at work without the awkwardness. Story 32. High standards in relationships. I feel like men don't seem to care much about height. Meanwhile, a lot of girls have a requirement that their partner has to be the taller one or even meet a minimum height. For the record, I'm aware this is totally nitpicking considering the amount of pressure society puts on women to look and act a certain way, but it's something I've noticed. Tall girl, hot as hell. Short girl, hot as hell. Girl's the same height as the guy, hot as hell. Tall guy, hot as hell. Guy the same height as the girl. Some girls might object, but still generally not too frowned upon. Short guy? Oh no, he's too short for me. No hobbits. Also, I feel like the whole "it goes back to our primal days" argument is BS. You could say the same about physically fighting for food. Even if it does go back to our ancestors, it's 2024. So we're not as archaic that we should fall victim to the instincts of our ancestors. Story 33. I think for every single one of us, we have witnessed some sort of double standard and likely lived it in some way. This covers every question too. Who, what, when, where, and why. I'm sure if you rephrase this question as who, what, when, and where, and why you have personally witnessed or dealt with a double standard, we may get genuine, real personal answers. We don't need secondary or tertiary opinions in this question, but that seems to be the majority of the answers. It has to be truly personal for this question to actually really matter. Your standard and mine are different. For example, some might ask, why is beef readily available in India, but pork is almost completely unavailable in Pakistan? This is a double standard by definition, yet it is a double standard set by others. We all see double standards every day. Some matter more than others. On top of that, for those we love, we let certain things slide. For example, one of my good friends is completely anti-smoking and loves the gym life, but he fell in love with a girl who loves to smoke. I suppose in this scenario, he is double standards with himself. Very interesting question. Story 34. I broke my neck in Florida for someone's negligence. I had 2 prior fines in the same job site for the same thing before my company was on site. Being the owner, I exempted out of workman's comp, because I was covered medically and Florida is only medical comp. Anyway, legislature and the other Bush jab have something in place that is a life changer for the bad. Horizontal immunity means basically a contractor cannot sue another contractor for injury that is caused from the other negligence. This was 2008. My worker who received stitches 100 or more received $160K in 6 months for a cut. Took me 5 years. And I received less than him. They were looking for the case to get the outdated legislature changed, but I had to pull out of Florida and went to SC. It was cheap, but I tried to apply for assistance, but I didn't qualify for food stamps either because I made too much that year and I was too injured to work. So I applied for temporary disability and I denied for that because I wasn't waiting for reconstructive surgery for my neck. So they couldn't get a dollar amount that matched my injury because the extent of it wouldn't be known until I was completely through with my physical therapy. And then my doctor was to evaluate my injury and then I was to see what a doctor in their payroll says. Story 35. Men's looks. I think men have it either easy or rough and it's based almost entirely on luck. Men are measured in things they can't change: height, male pattern baldness, eye color, hair color, size. Oftentimes, women in the office openly joke or make fun of these things. However, if you hint at the facts that Jessica is 35, overweight, doesn't have a good job, it's like you just committed war crimes. Obviously, it's not all the time, and guys can be pretty terrible. But that is really put in its place while the opposite continues and is even supported in some social circles. I don't know. I think men just have a lot of things that make it hard for them that are allowed to worsen, while a disparate treatment for similar things or even less serious things is unacceptable. What's the worst double standard? It isn't the worst double standard. Far from it, but it's annoying. It's about the workers who start early and leave early versus the workers who start late and leave late. Let's say I start to work at the office at 6 a.m. while my coworker starts at 8 a.m. If I leave at 2 p.m. and he leaves at 4 p.m., we would have accomplished about the same amount of work. For some reason, I'd be the one who's tagged as lazy because I leave the job earlier. It didn't happen to me, but I witnessed it a few times during my career. Well, some people just don't know how to do math. Story 2. Wage theft is larger than all other forms of theft combined, but is not considered a crime. If you steal $100 from the register, you will go to jail, be branded a felon, and potentially lose your voting rights. If your boss leaves $100 out of your paycheck, you can maybe recoup some portion of that after a protracted civil case at significant personal cost. Story 3. If you take maternity leave, your job or position is protected and your medical insurance still covers you. You can also use any campus facility at my previous university as you're still considered a student. And your scholarships can be put on hold, and SCRC even pays a stipend. Get cancer and need to take some time off? Well, job's not held. Your insurance refuses to cover you as you aren't working. You'll also lose your scholarships, and being on a medical leave of absence means you can't use any uni's facility without paying a premium. Now that's just obnoxious. Story 4. Parents can disrespect their children at every turn and insult them, but when the child stands up for themselves and insults back, they're reprimanded for being ungrateful and disrespectful. If you want your freaking kids to respect you, offer them the same courtesy. You brought them into this world. They didn't ask to be born, and they shouldn't suffer from your own shortcomings. They were treated that way by their parents, so they think it's fair to treat you like that. It's stupid. Story 5. There's a political one that annoys me. Posting a picture of a political cartoon that pokes fun at the other side and chuckling, then screaming at someone doing the same thing at the expense of your side. If you post a picture making fun of another political party or insulting that party's voters or politicians, then you are tacitly accepting that the reverse is okay. Story 6. The Catholic Church's continued covering up of its kitty fiddler priests. Anyone who was raised Catholic will know that the most basic teaching in Catholicism is that Jesus passed away so that our sins can be forgiven, as long as we admit to them and ask for forgiveness. So basically, if you do something wrong, admit it, and you'll be forgiven. Well, the Church expects its adherents to follow this basic idea, but when it was time for the Church to admit its sins, it just covered them up. It's the most ridiculous double standard and the main reason why I left the Church. Story 7. Politicians. Everything about them is a double standard. Ban guns, except for me and my bodyguards. Walls are bad. Let's tear them down, except for the wall surrounding my $1 million lakefront house with private security. That wall stays up. Let's change our nation's healthcare. We'll make an exception for Congress because we like our healthcare. We need to be more green. Stop buying SUVs and boats. Except for me, because I need a private jet, yacht, armored Cadillac with V8 engine and 3 houses. Screw all politicians. Story 8. At our job, men have to wear long-sleeved shirts, long pants, and closed shoes in the office no matter the weather. If it's 40 degrees Celsius, you might get away with wearing those 3/4 length chino shorts and a short-sleeved business shirt. You'll still get a few side eyes. But women can dress like they just walked in front of the beach.
Short skirts, crop tops, sundresses, open-toed sandals, pretty much anything goes. They look cool and fresh in summer while us poor men are all sweating and flustered in the heat. Story 9. Pay your rent on the 1st, absolutely no later than the 5th or there will be late fees. Check account on the 6th of the month after sending the check a week before, same balance. Check on the 7th or 8th, etc., same balance. Those schmucks aren't depositing the rent check, but I can't pay you past the 5th? Why? Screw your late fees. I should get credit for you not depositing the money. Why demand it by a specific date if you're just going to sit on it? Landlords are stupid. Story 10. Poor and working class people get crap for buying a $3 coffee drink, but rich people will spend thousands on a single bottle of wine and get praised for their refined palate. Lower classes can't do anything for their own enjoyment without getting criticized. The onus is always on being frugal, and any deviation is met with, well, maybe that's why you're poor, or you're greedy for getting financial assistance and not using every penny you have for basic survival and savings. But the upper classes can do whatever they please, no matter how trivial, and get praised for their good investments. And if it's something indefensible, well, they can afford it. They've earned the right to do what they will with their money. Basic enjoyment ought not to be a luxury. Bread and roses. Story 11. Women who accuse men of SA because they regret having intimacy with them. My cousin was dating this chick for a while and they broke up, so she went to the police with a false accusation, even when she was proven to be a liar. She admitted to a friend she made it up, and the friend accidentally recorded it and got hit with a minor sentence. He was fired from his job and couldn't even sign on to unemployment benefits as a result, and then the case was closed. Story 12. This isn't the worst, but it's extremely pervasive and I never see it talked about. Dogs and cats. If someone meets a cat that's antisocial, hisses at people, growls, scratches, and bites, they decide that's a crappy cat and I hate cats. If someone meets a dog that's antisocial, barks, and misbehaves, they think that dog is a crappy owner. The person should really have trained it better. I've met loads of people who hate cats and love dogs with this exact bias. Either it's the owner's fault or the animal's fault. Pick one. Story 13. Teacher here. Moms, including single moms, get criticized for things like not varying their children's lunch enough or occasionally being late dropping their kids off at school. Children having messy hair or crumpled clothes or, I don't know, stupid stuff. Dads, especially single dads, get praised for the dumbest things. Kids come to school with 2 lopsided pigtails. Oh my god, he tried so hard to do her hair. He comes to a school event. Oh my god, he's so involved. I literally saw this happen to the same children. When the parents were together and the mom was the main caregiver, it was, why are their clothes so messy? Did she even brush their hair? She forgot to send a snack for the field trip. What was she thinking? When they split up, the kids ended up with the dad, which was the right decision in my opinion, while custody was being decided. Not exactly sure how that happened. No, it's not usual, but after seeing him be a single dad for literally 2 weeks, one of my coworkers, one of the same ones who lobbed all those criticisms at the children's mom, took it upon herself to write a letter to family court, extolling the dad's parenting virtues, which was literally stuff like, he tries his best to make sure they get to school on time, and he's learning how to do his daughter's hair, and he makes sure they come to school with a change of clothes in case they have an accident. Don't get me wrong, those are all good things, but also, those are all things these kids' moms are doing as well, but they didn't get noticed. If she's a mom and those things are expected. When the dad does them for the exact same children, it's somehow worthy of writing a letter to family court because it's so exceptional. Women, you should hear the other side. Story 14. Lookism. Judging someone based on their physical appearance. The halo effect makes people believe that someone's physical attractiveness means that they're also decent, educated, professional, hardworking, and overall good-natured. Beautiful people are held to a different standard, and people have a hard time believing that a good-looking person is capable of being a schmuck. On the other hand, ugly people are considered lazy, sleazy, untrustworthy, and are constantly ignored, dismissed, and considered unworthy. Story 15. Not so much of a double standard, but in athletic competition, trans women are allowed to compete with biological women. They have extreme advantages and are thus winning more competitions and are breaking records. But in men's sports, you don't hear of trans men doing the same. It blows my mind how people can't see the injustice. There should be an open category for trans athletes to compete in. Story 16. I'm in high school and female. If I tell a female teacher how much I love her and how much she means to me, I'm just showing appreciation and being open with my feelings in a positive way. If I tell a male teacher how much I love him and how much he means to me, I'm a creep and begging for good grades. I just wish I could show my male teacher some appreciation without it being misinterpreted. Story 17. We all knew this, of course. With men, it's okay and totally normal to have this body hair. Hairy arms, hairy armpits, hairy legs, and hairy chest, etc. Because hey, they're men, right? With women, it's gross and disgusting to have these hairy arms and hairy legs. I don't know why some people think it's normal for men to have these and not normal for women. Have you ever wondered if women actually like your hairy chest? I actually don't, because I don't have one. Story 18. Feminists, anti-racists, etc. that aggressively stereotype and generalize everyone, but will cry if their own pet group is stereotyped. If you think it is fine to say men are horrible or men are trash, but then get up all in arms when someone says women are deceitful or women are hysterical, then that is a double standard, which is very annoying. It seems this is accelerating too, with certain groups being 100% fair game for attacks while we protect other sacred cows. I mean, the AP now writes whites with a lowercase w and blacks with an uppercase b. And part of their justification is that white people are bad, so they deserve it. The other part of their justification is that white people know their history, while black people don't. How many white people are mutts that have no clear idea of their history or ancestry? It isn't like ancestors were reserved for the old country and Scottish people are 100% Scottish now. Or that all families kept records and everyone knows. Anyone could get on 23andMe and see what their DNA is, so it's such a silly argument. Story 19. I'm a girl working in a technical area, mostly with men. The usual double standard is, a man makes a mistake. Yeesh, he did that because he's an idiot. Hopefully next time will be better. A woman makes a mistake. See, this is what I've been talking about. She did that because all women are technical anti-talent. They should be banned from doing anything technical now. Basically, the double standard is that when a man makes something stupid, it is individual. When a woman does something stupid, it is a kind of collective failure. This approach is immensely idiotic, but it often works like that in areas that are not typically for women. Story 20. Person 1. I'm poor and I want to be rich. I'm going to do XYZ thing. Person 2. I'm poor and I want to be rich. I'm going to... Person 1. Hey, it's current year. Everybody knows that XYZ thing is wrong. I only did it because it happened before current year. Person 2. Are you going to return your stolen wealth or land or resources, etc., to undo what would be considered unacceptable in the current year? Person 1. No, I changed the rules to say that XYZ thing is wrong after I got everything I wanted. I wasn't wrong back when I did it, so all the stuff is legitimately mine. Person 2. Are you going to share your stuff with me so that I can have your quality of life without needing to do XYZ thing? Person 1. No, it's my stuff and I don't like you, so I'm not going to share. Person 2. Then I'm going to figure things out myself since you don't want to help me. Can you at least screw off and stop interfering? Person 1. No, I'm not wasting such a great opportunity to stand on a moral high horse and virtue signal super hard. Person 2. Well, what do you expect me to do then? Person 1. Rafflecopters, LMAO, obviously you should just stay poor. We wouldn't be able to feel powerful if there wasn't a huge underclass of peasants to grovel at our feet for breadcrumbs and do all our dirty work while we make fun of them. Obviously, the only reason they're poor is because they're incompetent and not because we're intentionally preventing them from being able to challenge our hegemony. Geopolitics in a nutshell. How I realized that everything is BS. Story 21. I had a friend get blackout intoxicated and a girl who had been trying to get him to talk to her, which he didn't, started to hit on him and she started to give him a whistle while he was close to being passed out. His girlfriend found out and broke up with him for cheating. Fast forward to about 3 months later, her best friend gets taken advantage of by a guy at a party while intoxicated. Did she ever accuse her friend of cheating? No. Did her friend's boyfriend get mad? No, because he's a rational human. Men can be essayed by women. Normalize saying this. That is the worst double standard. Story 22. I tormented a guy in high school for calling me a pre-owned in front of people at a party. His reasoning? He made advancements. I refused, so he thought it best to attack me for not being pure. The double standard lies in the fact that it came from a spoiled, rich athlete that had been passed around more times than salt at a dinner table, which I only knew because he bragged about it in an attempt to assert dominance or some crap. He was known for being notoriously sexist, sometimes even showing out to female teachers if he felt haughty enough and was just an overall complete schmuck. I got mad and proceeded to reveal to him that I was a lesbian, had no morbid interest in him, and counter-shamed him in the most disgusted tone I could possibly muster. It was something along the lines of, I'm glad you enjoy being a dugout. Used up, the girls can pump twice for a quick $1, but you didn't have to tell me that. It's really gross. I know what it's like to be a little weird though, so I won't judge you for it too hard. Gave the dude a beautifully placed hesitant touch on the shoulder. Got up and walked away. People there did that annoying, ooh crap, and he got all embarrassed and mad. After that, every time I saw him, if he got even remotely close, I went away dramatically and verbally grimaced. Each time it visibly embarrassed or angered him, even if no one else around knew why I did it. My friends would join in sometimes too and whisper anytime he walked by with disgusting faces plastered for mass effect. It did get kind of out of hand when other girls started joining in though. Some were even approaching him to flirt, ask about his money, say degrading things, and walk away laughing. Man couldn't get some for crap from what I heard, unless it was by one of the school train stations, if you know what I mean. I realized years later I may have gone too far though, and now that I look back, I actually feel bad for it. I moved from that school a year later, but apparently the dude had gone from schmuck high school hunk to reserved insecure wreck over the span of 2 years. I saw him again in college. By then, he had dropped sports and everything and constantly looked like a sunken shell of the hothead he used to be. He stopped being avidly sexist as far as I knew, and for all I know, other things could have happened to him, but man, was it really weird seeing him like that. Well, I'd say it was well deserved. Story 23. My mother once went on a trip to South Africa for a vacation and met this boyfriend she met on Instagram that she never even saw in person once. That witch knew we needed the money to move to Miami for a better life and school, but her dumb self thought that it would be a good idea to cancel the move, make me do homeschooling, and have no social life so that she can go on her dream trip with her dream guy, expecting a happy ending. And then she has the complete audacity to get mad with me when I'm not on board with this. Now when it comes to me wanting to take a trip abroad, UK, she's all like, oh, they're too expensive, your 2-year-old brother won't do well on the flight, making excuses. When I move, hopefully to the UK after research and saving, I never want to see her again. Story 24. When you are intoxicated and drive a vehicle, you're at fault and legally in trouble. When you're intoxicated and someone has intimacy with you, you can't legally consent and it's not your fault and you aren't legally in trouble. What I'm trying to say here is that there's a double standard about being intoxicated and somehow you're accountable in one and not accountable in the other. The person knew what they were doing when they drove intoxicated and was responsible, and yet the person was intoxicated and wasn't responsible for having intimacy because they were intoxicated. That's a really hot take. Story 25. Many people support the Native American people as they should and speak out against the horrible things that have happened to them, but when much of the same stuff happens to Native Palestinians, it is suddenly too complicated and people feel for both sides. Do people feel for the European colonizers who oppressed and ended so many Native Americans? No. So why do people not just feel for but support the Israeli people when they do ethnic cleansing? Destroy our homes and villages, spread horrible propaganda and out us and separate us from everything, going so far as to build up walls and segregate airports and roads. Story 26. My school has the worst double standard between girls and boys and mental illnesses. If a boy has any kind of mental illness, they're babied and you're a monster if you report that they did something wrong. I'm AFAB and have PTSD. Anytime someone or something sets me off and I start crying, my teachers, mainly maths, will make a snide remark of, "There she goes again. Why are you crying now? Come on, we're waiting for an answer." This isn't just happening to me. My best friend, female, had a panic attack and was told to toughen up. Story 27. When a black character is whitewashed, everyone gets up in arms, and rightfully so. Whitewashing is deplorable. When a white character is turned black, on the other hand, it's celebrated for being diverse, but in its own way, it's a deplorable act. Race bending is terrible. Don't do it. Come up with your own original black characters instead of going the lazy and uncreative route and making a black version of white characters like what Marvel and DC are doing. In the end, DC and Marvel are offending the minority group they're trying to appeal to, and mainstream audiences, for some reason, eat it up, which only enables their behavior. When we get characters like Miles Morales or some AU storyline with a black Superman, what we really should be thinking is, oh, so DC and Marvel are too lazy to go the extra mile and make an original black character, or just do the research to find a character in their universe who's of a minority to make a story about. So instead, they give us these off-brands and rip-offs of established heroes. I'd say Miles Morales is his own character. What I don't like is changing an original character to somebody else. Story 28. The United States media, in case you aren't aware, there is a perception that they favor the Democratic Party. Many believe they protect and coddle Democratic officials and policies. Avoiding pressing or putting on the spot anyone who is a Democrat in office, it's often seen as entirely softball interviews, and if by chance they ask a hard, exposing question, it's done in a very cream puff way with zero follow-up or pressing. Republicans, on the other hand, are often seen as being raked over the coals 24/7 with what some perceive as misleading and untrue reporting. If a Republican crossed the street wrong, it's claimed it would be in every headline with 24/7 nonstop coverage, with commentators allegedly spewing their negativity about how horrible Republicans are. Story 29. It wasn't the worst job, but I worked in a call center where we clocked in a program and adjusted our status throughout our shift to reflect our activities, accounting for the entire time. The statuses include things like available, after call follow-up, away from desk, lunch, break, IT issue, admin, manual dial, meeting, training, and gone home. We had to switch to available right at 9 a.m., and if we didn't, the system would log us in as late. Being late resulted in dock pay in 15-minute increments. At the end of the day at 9 p.m., if we worked the closing shift, we had to remain in available until 9:01 p.m. to ensure we answered any calls still in the queue. We weren't paid for that extra minute at the end. If you did the closing shift 6 days a week, That's about 5 hours of unpaid work per year just for that 9:01 p.m. finish. Yet, if you were even a minute late at the start, you'd be docked for a full 15 minutes. Story 30. This one's a personal one, but if my mom asks me an intrusive question that I feel uncomfortable answering and I try to skirt the issue, then I'm a drama queen. But the moment I ask something completely benign, then she throws a hissy fit and says I'm being intrusive. Hey mom, there's a big difference between you asking about it if I'm going to give you grandkids and me wondering if you want to make tacos for dinner. Story 31. You can't decide on a single worst. Some of the ones I can think of. The women or non-white people can't be sexist or racist, or you can't be sexist or racist or offensive even towards cis white men. If a guy acts feminine, he's obviously either gay or trans, not even considering cross-dressers or just feminine men. But if a woman acts masculine, they're obviously just a tomboy. Maybe closeted lesbians and trans men are more accepted now, but still overall, the concept. People who watch Twitch or YouTube are wasting their lives, watching other people playing video games rather than doing it themselves. People who watch sports on TV aren't, apparently. Personal experience says they're the people saying this contradiction seriously. Well, since you are on YouTube, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 32. You're a grunt worker for a company, you're maybe like 1 or 2 minutes, maybe just barely 5 minutes past your clock-in time, and it's a big deal. Fireable offense, even. After just a mere few offenses. It doesn't matter if you're a great employee, get your work done, stay late, come in on your days off, come in early, pleasant to everyone, don't cause drama, etc. But then in comes the manager 2 hours late, regularly, just because they simply couldn't be bothered to show up on time. They make twice as much as you and aren't held accountable for their slack no matter how much they suck. At least not until a much larger accumulation of crap before anyone even takes notice. Screw those kind of managers. Story 33. It's frustrating when employers expect a picture-perfect CV every time and seem to overlook the significant efforts candidates make. This can include preparing presentations, traveling for hours, like a 5-hour train journey, often without any reimbursement for travel costs, and dedicating their time to attend the job interview scheduled and to receive a poor, effortless, automated email that essentially says, "Not you," without any real feedback is incredibly disappointing. What's worse is when some employers don't even respond to further questions. It's just inconsiderate. Interviews should just be online at this point. Story 34. When a job wants you to have 5 to 10 years of experience at an entry-level job, but your only experience is in college, not in the field. Imagine, fresh out of college, with a degree in hand, ready to make a life for themselves, start applying to jobs that fit their qualifications, only to find out every place wants experience, but none are willing to provide experience. Or imagine having that associate's degree and applying for some lesser jobs that still fall into what you can do and what you're looking for. Maybe it's only $11.25 instead of $17.50, like the other ones you apply to, but it's solid, steady work and you can still grow and ride the ranks up in. Then they decide not to hire you. Why? You're overqualified and they don't want to pay the difference. They want someone with undergraduate level skills with a high school diploma. You would think since they're desperate right now for employees, this would change, but they have not. I need a desk job right now after I was injured working as a nurse's aide for 4 months during this lockdown. I became a nursing home secretary but only made $8.25 instead of $14.75 I was making. I was forced to work every other weekend, despite asking for hours because I can survive with so little. $8.25 for 16 hours bi-weekly didn't even cover my rent. I looked for another job, found one I worked at previously, knowing it was a desk job. Got the job, only to be threatened and pestered out in less than 3 days by my new coworkers because I was working the first shift, which was offered to me, meaning their friend who was temporarily first and second shift couldn't slack off with them. So now I'm jobless and stuck in an infinite loop of you're overqualified or underqualified. Story 35. Before I get most medical procedures, including ones that are desperately and urgently needed to save my life, they must give me a pregnancy test to make sure I'm not pregnant. And if I am, the procedure cannot happen. The cells and barely formed life potentially inside me is held more valuable than my fully formed life, regardless if I already have a child waiting at home. Cis men and trans women are able to get these things done regardless, minus the trans discrimination that occurs in healthcare, because they cannot get pregnant. My full life in front of you is more important than a barely sprouted life that may survive inside me. Screw that crap. Story 36. When the school requires girls to wear long pants and boys can wear shorts, they sit there at ease, wearing just a t-shirt and shorts. Meanwhile, the girls must wear long pants, jeans or tights, and it's hot in them. They're not the airy shorts boys wear, and shirts. The hair is on the back of the head, even when it's tied, and then sometimes they dare to complain that they're cold and want to turn off the conditioner. Unrelated to the AC, it's very irritating. They know anyone is not allowed to wear shorts, and yet they wear them, knowing they can get away with it while the girls are discriminated against. I can't help but feel disdain for anyone who wears shorts with such non-solidarity, albeit I won't admit it in public. I like the words to describe this double standard, and it's the boys' fault for allowing it and making the rule a discrimination, knowing they won't be enforced. And I'm astounded that their moms let them do this and keep this injustice. Story 37. I had a manager write me up because I had a sick day, and lockdown times too, and I clocked in 3 minutes late a few times. I worked opening shifts and depend on others to unlock the door, hence the minutes late. Not only did the other staff members not get in trouble for late clock-ins, at the time I was being written up for a sick day. The coworker I got sick from was on her 5th sick day in a row. I asked. She never got in trouble. Oh, but also, the manager would just choose to not come into work if she didn't feel like driving. I quit. Clearly wanted me to leave and was finding any way to fire me. It was just a crappy big company retail job too. If I'm just a number, I'll take a sick day. Story 38. So I was going back to my college after summer break. It is 3 hours away. I was traveling by bus. I got my seat and settled down, and a girl around 20 years old sat next to me. After 30 minutes, she starts using my shoulder as a headrest, facilitating her to sleep. I'm 6 foot tall, she was 5'6", and she got pretty comfortable throughout the journey. I didn't say anything, but I let her know that I didn't like it, but she didn't care. When I got to my dorm room, I thought, what if a guy did that to a girl? What would be the consequences of that? He would get arrested and or beat up. Story 39. A guy can hang with a group of girls or sleep with a group of girls, but if a girl does it, she's a witch. I grew up living with my mom in a not-so-good part of town, and I usually only had guy friends. This was fine because I was super young, but when my father got custody of me when I was around 10, I was never allowed to hang with him. This made me really mad. I never got along well with most girls because my humor is too blunt for them, and they are really sensitive, so I've always found it easier to click with the guys. I've only ever had one boyfriend in my life, and we're still together after almost 3 years, but he has a few buddies who I hang with too. My father will not let me go swimming with more than 2 guys unless I have another girl with me, and I hate it. He says boys will be boys, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. My friends would never do that. And we're 15 and just want to swim in 30-degree weather. My dad even said he wouldn't care if my boyfriend hung around all my girlfriends, but I can't hang with his buddies because I'll look wrong in the public eye. I hate it. Story 40. It always annoyed me that in my country, men either have to do 6 months of military service or 9 months of civil service, all with a really crappy pay that's way underneath the minimum wage here. There was a big debate by some feminists which resulted in our national hymn being changed because it's sexist. I mean, I can understand it, but I still think that the priorities here are a little mixed up. Even my grandmother once complained to me that it's sexist girls can't do the same military or civil service. They can, just for a whole year, and they get to choose. Story 41. My ex-girlfriend thinking hurting me was okay and threatening me to make a scene if I'd ever hit back. A few times she went too far, so I instinctively pushed her away. She got furious and said she would have fallen and hit her head somewhere. A few days after our breakup, she wanted to talk to me. I didn't. We still lived together and she tried to circle me in the kitchen. I wanted to walk away, so she grabbed a kitchen knife and pointed it at me. I don't exactly remember how I got out of there. I think I kinda could talk her down. Story 42. The double standard that's present around every boss. It's cool if they have an attitude and act unprofessional. You just have to deal with it as a working person, is the phrase I always get. But the worker, they are expected to be perfect. No attitude, no bad days, and no freedom to express themselves, even in a professional, healthy, and productive way. They aren't allowed crap. It's like we aren't allowed to be human anymore. I had a manager ask why I left the room twice before morning break. Sorry, I had to whiz and crap. If the manager got asked that question, it would be insane. But it's the power dynamic. It's awful, and it only happens because the power dynamic is so messed up and no one has respect for their employees anymore. Story 43. Dads babysit or play Mr. Mom, but moms are the ones doing the work. A mom can take her son into the women's restroom with no problem, but a dad taking his daughter into the men's room is met with stares and sometimes confrontation. This one happened to me. A woman who doesn't want to be a parent can get a termination, and most reasonable people don't care. A man doesn't want to be a parent is told to man up and do his part and take care of his child he helped make. A woman can hit a man in public and no one bats an eye. As soon as that man fights back, the crowd will descend on him and he's the bad guy. Men who have been mistreated or essayed are not believed, even with evidence. But a woman is believed simply by saying so. A man can have intimacy with multiple partners and no one really cares. A woman cannot. Now let me make a callback to that woman who complained about dads. This is why your problem was normalized. Story 44. Force majeure clauses in residential leases. Basically, the ones that I've been seeing state that the landlord is completely absolved should they be unable to perform necessary repairs or adhere to any aspect of their lease if the reason is because of an act of God, such as a war, lockdown, hurricane, earthquake, volcanism, government action or inaction, death in the family, or serious illness. These exact same things, however, do not absolve the renter from any of their duties. Basically, the renter still has to find a way to pay rent, even in the natural disaster when they may not be working, and even if the property they are living in may be damaged so badly that they can't even use it. But the landlord doesn't have to hold up their end of the bargain and gets to say it's because of whatever the disaster or event is. Now that's just flat out brain dead. Story 45. I've lived as an ugly fat person and as someone in shape enough to be considered attractive. Honestly, it's the biggest double standard there is, and I'm not sure if it's linked to the human psyche through evolution or just from the plastic BS Hollywood's pushed on us since the 50s. There's so many negative nuances in being fat that I don't think it's worth it to live that way. Not because you'll pass away early, but you'll be mostly miserable the entire time. People who never went from fat to fit have no idea. Most people who have gone fit were never fat first. Maybe overweight, but not like properly fat. I think I was 260 or more pounds at 5'9" this time when I started. I'm pudding, not like a slight belly or little man melons. I'm talking about a basketball wrapped in a tire as my stomachs and my melons would make women jealous. You get a really weird outlook on life since you're wallowing in depression and teetering on depressive thoughts for so long. I'm currently working on getting fit again. And there's another BS part of being fat. I'm about 3 weeks in and I just started seeing results. A more average person would have seen results in half the time. Oh, and going to the gym, even though I know no one is watching or cares, is still embarrassing for me flopping my fat around. No one cares. They're in their own world, working on themselves, but I do get eyes in my direction once in a while. Story 46. I was an avid swing dancer back in the day and once went to a social dance. I was dancing with this pretty country-looking girl. I asked her what other hobbies she did besides dancing. She answered that she did karate. I said, "Oh wow, I used to do karate when I was younger. Can you show me a move or a kata?" And she said, "Sure thing." So we stopped dancing, and in the middle of the dance floor, she did a little right-left combo and ended up punching me. I cleaned myself up and came back to her, surrounded by her friends. They all laughed at me, and one I remember saying, "You asked for it." I felt pretty helpless and just went home after that, but I couldn't help but think if the roles were reversed, I would have probably been arrested or banned from that dance scene. Story 47. People who think it's okay for cops to be schmucks to people who aren't respectful, but who also think that customer service workers need to sit back and take it when customers aren't respectful. Cops are often dealing with people who've experienced some kind of trauma, people who have bad experiences with cops, etc. If I was just mistreated, the last thing in my mind is remember to be polite, be respectful. I'm probably overwhelmed, emotional, panicky, etc. But if I so much as raise my voice a little or say crap while describing the situation, cops take it as permission to turn on schmuck mode. However, if I'm in a clothing store and a customer comes in shouting or being rude, I'm expected to smile and nod and do whatever I can to help them. If a 16-year-old making minimum wage is to accept being screamed at by strangers because they don't have someone's shoe sizes, cops should be able to maintain their composure when dealing with literal trauma victims. The same idea goes for nurses, social workers, and anyone working with any kind of vulnerable population. Don't take things personally. The world won't stop turning because someone said the F word around you. Story 48. The girls' bathroom got redone in our school, while their bathroom before was infinitely better than the boys' bathroom. The boys' bathroom literally has one lock between all the stalls, and 4 of them don't have doors. We were missing a sink for ages and had no toilet paper for ages. And a female friend told me they get actual toilet paper, while as we have toilet paper thinner than a singular atom, and on top of that, we have tiles coming off the wall and the urinal doesn't flush. Meanwhile, they get all the walls redone and some mural thing in there as well as some plants and stuff. By the way, I know all this not from personal experience, but from some video they showed in assembly glorifying the students who did it. Story 49. I am currently pregnant with my first. I work in the criminal justice system, but in a job that's fairly equally mixed with men and women. As soon as I got pregnant, a male coworker came up and asked me if I would really rather work daily with felons rather than be at home with my child. I asked him if he quit his job when he had a child. Spoiler, he didn't. Later, another male coworker made a comment that I would have to be nicer and play the mom part. I asked what that meant, and he said, like baking cupcakes for the PTA. I asked him if he had ever baked cupcakes for the PTA. Spoiler, he hasn't. I also continued to inform him that if I don't seem like a mom at work, it's because it's not my job to be anybody's mother here. A new position opened up in a specialty area of my job. It would require me to be on call some weekends. I wasn't recommended for the position because I'm pregnant and it would probably be difficult for me to find childcare on my on-call weekends. My husband works weekends. I was still allowed to apply if I wanted, but I wasn't specifically recommended. But my male coworker, who also has young children, was still recommended without concerns of how he would find childcare, even though both he and his wife work. Story 50. I was in a relationship with this guy and we both agreed to make it an open relationship. He said he would never want to suppress my sexuality one minute, and the next he said, "Yeah, we're open, but I want to be the only person you sleep with." I said, "Fine, then you can't sleep with anyone else." He whined and threw a tantrum, saying that's not fair. Anyway, our relationship lasted for like 2 weeks, and I never slept with him, or anyone else during that time period. It was a major schmuck, and this was just one of many red flags. Story 51. At my previous job, only managers were allowed any sort of work-from-home privilege during the lockdown. After the first few months, once things settled down a bit. At the end of 2021, I would have been a lone worker during the holiday season, so I asked if I was allowed to work remotely during that time to complete year-end reports. My request was declined on the grounds of, they don't want to set a precedent that you can't use your PTO days during the year and then get free days off during the holiday season when everyone else is using their PTO that they saved. So I asked what the managers were doing while remote working, and they viewed it as free PTO, and promptly found another job. Story 52. After conception, a woman can decide if she wants to actually become a mother or not, right-wing interference in body autonomy notwithstanding, but a man has very little, if any, say in the choice to become a father. This is less the case in committed long-term relationships. Both parties have influence on one another. There are certainly instances where a man has undue influence and leverages it to force an outcome, but that is a rare exceptional case, not the norm. Problems with the patriarchy facilitating the ease and prevalence of paternal abandonment and directly related to the issue. Then you have situations like that kid that was essayed by a female teacher who became pregnant from that and went after him for child support when he turned 18 and actually got awarded the child support, which only muddy these waters further. Story 53. In Singapore, male citizens are conscripted into mandatory national service in the military, police, or civil service after they turn 18 years old, for a period of 2 years. This often means that their life and education are set back by 2 years as compared to their female counterparts in school. It is usually a burden that is heavily felt by the male population as 2 years of their lives are lost, as well as losing to the female counterparts in school and work. It is often a point of debate when topics of workplace salary and gender equality come up. In an interview to ask females about their opinions on national service, a junior college female student, high school equivalent, responded that she thinks NS is great for males and it is a valuable experience as it builds resilience and makes them mature. When asked if females should also serve NS to make it fair for the populace, her reply, "Oh no, I don't want to waste 2 years of my life." No hesitation and straight to the camera. The men of the nation will never forget her. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.